The rifle cracked once. Clean, sharp, final. 800 meters downrange, the steel target dropped like a stone, dead center. Every head on the range turned, not because someone hit it, because she did. Elena Carter lowered the weapon slowly, her hands steady as surgical steel. Around her, 20 combat-trained soldiers stood frozen, mouths half open, disbelief thick in the air like smoke. 2 seconds ago, she was the nurse they made fun of in the mess hall, the soft one who couldn't hack it, the woman Captain Briggs called Clinic Girl every chance he got. Now she'd just made a shot most of them would miss on their best day. The wind hadn't even settled yet, and already the questions were starting, silent, dangerous, creeping across faces like cracks in ice. Before we go further, I need you with me on this. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Because what happens next? You won't believe it. Ironvale Training Base sat like a scar in the desert. Low buildings, dust everywhere, heat that made your lungs burn by noon. It wasn't the kind of place people dreamed about. It was the kind of place you earned your way out of or got stuck in until you forgot why you came. Elena had been there 6 months. 6 months of cleaning wounds, stocking supplies, and pretending she didn't hear the jokes. 6 months of being invisible in a world that only respected volume and violence. The medical bay smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee. She'd memorized every crack in the linoleum floor, every stain on the ceiling tiles. This was her territory now, small, quiet, forgettable. Exactly what she wanted. "Hey, Carter!" Sergeant Dawson's voice cut across the room, too loud, too casual. He filled the doorway with his bulk, grinning like he'd just told the world's funniest joke. "Got another bleeder in the East Quad. Probably gonna need your gentle touch." She didn't look up from the inventory sheet. Her pen kept moving, counting bandages that didn't need counting. "I'll be there in 5. Take your time, sweetheart. Not like lives depend on it or anything." Laughter rippled through the hallway behind him. 3, maybe 4 voices. She recognized them all. Jenkins, Torres, probably that new kid Morrison trying to fit in. She kept counting. Dawson lingered in the doorway another few seconds, waiting for a reaction. When he didn't get one, he shrugged and walked away, still chuckling to himself. The thing about being underestimated, it gave you room to breathe, room to watch, room to see exactly who people were when they thought you didn't matter. And Elena had gotten very good at watching. She finished the inventory, grabbed her kit, and headed to the East Quad. The heat hit her like a wall the moment she stepped outside. July in Nevada meant the kind of heat that made you question every decision that led you to this exact spot on Earth. The bleeder turned out to be nothing, a split knuckle from someone punching a wall in frustration. She cleaned it, wrapped it, sent the recruit on his way with a lecture he didn't listen to. Standard Tuesday morning. Back in the bay, she restocked her kit methodically. Gauze, tape, antiseptic wipes, everything in its place, everything controlled. "Carter." She turned. Captain Marcus Briggs stood in her doorway, arms crossed, filling the space with the kind of presence that demanded attention. Mid-40s, built like a bulldog that had seen too many fights, with a voice that could strip paint off walls and an ego twice as wide as his shoulders. "Sir?" He looked around the medical bay like he was inspecting it for the first time, even though he'd been here dozens of times before. His gaze landed on her coffee mug, the one with the faded university logo she'd bought at a thrift store because it was cheap. "You settling in okay?" "Yes, sir." "Good, good." He nodded slowly, but his eyes said something different. They always did. "You know, I've been thinking about your assignment here." She waited. She'd learned early that Briggs liked the sound of his own voice, especially when he thought he was making a point. This base runs on discipline, toughness, the kind of mental fortitude that separates soldiers from civilians. He stepped further into the room, his boots heavy on the floor. "Medical support is important, don't get me wrong, but it's different, softer." There it was, the word he loved to use. "I understand, sir." "Do you?" He tilted his head, studying her. "Because I look at you, Carter, and I see someone who couldn't handle the real work. Someone who took the easy route." She met his eyes, kept her face neutral. "I'm here to do my job, sir." "Your job?" He laughed, short, sharp, dismissive. Your job is to patch up scraped knees and hand out aspirin. That's not what builds soldiers. Understood, sir. You don't even fight back. He shook his head, something like disappointment crossing his face. That's your problem right there. No spine. This is a combat base, Carter. We don't need soft. She said nothing, just held his gaze until he got bored and left. When the door finally closed behind him, she exhaled slowly and went back to her inventory. Words were cheap, proof was everything, and she wasn't ready to show hers yet. The days blurred together after that. Wake at 05:30, shower. Coffee that tasted like battery acid. Morning rounds in the bay, lunch in the mess hall where she sat alone and pretended not to hear the conversations around her. Afternoon appointments, dinner, sleep, repeat. The recruits treated her like furniture, useful when they needed her, invisible otherwise. The officers barely acknowledged her existence except to remind her of her place. Even the other medical staff kept their distance, like mediocrity was contagious. Fine by her. She'd come to Iron Vale to disappear, and for 6 months it had worked. She was just another face in a sea of uniforms, another name on a roster that no one bothered to remember. Until the accident. It happened on a Tuesday, mid-morning during a routine obstacle course run. The heat was already pushing 90 degrees, the kind that made sweat pour and tempers flare. PFC Jackson, 22, cocky, built like a linebacker with shoulders that barely fit through doorways, was showing off for his squad. "Watch this!" he yelled, charging toward the rope swing section. Elena was 50 yards away, reorganizing supplies in the field medical station, when she heard it, the sound of overconfidence meeting physics. A meaty thud, then silence, then screaming. "Medic! We need a medic! Now!" She didn't run. Running made you sloppy, made you miss things. She moved fast, controlled, her kit already open by the time she reached the crowd of recruits standing in a useless circle. Jackson was on the ground, pale as chalk, eyes wide with the kind of fear that came from seeing your own blood. His left leg was bent wrong, and red was spreading fast across his cargo pants. Too fast, too much. Arterial. She knew it before she even knelt down. "Move." The word came out sharp, commanding. 3 recruits stumbled back. "You—" She pointed at the nearest one, a kid who looked like he was about to vomit. "Apply pressure here, right here. Don't let go. Don't ease up. You—" Another recruit, older, more steady. "Elevate his leg. Keep it higher than his heart." Her hands were already working, cutting away fabric, exposing the wound. Femoral artery, nicked, not severed. Blood pulsing between Jackson's fingers where he gripped his thigh, his knuckles white. "Am I—" His voice cracked. "Am I gonna—" "You're fine. Look at me." She caught his eyes, held them. "Stay with me, Jackson. Keep your eyes on mine." Her fingers found the wound, assessed it in seconds. The cut was jagged, deep, angled wrong. Training injury turned serious, fixable, but barely. The window was closing fast. She worked without thinking, muscle memory taking over. Tourniquet first. She pulled it from her kit, wrapped it high on his thigh, above the injury. Tightened it until Jackson gasped. "I know it hurts. Deal with it." Pressure dressing next. She packed the wound, her movements precise and mechanical, like she'd done this 1,000 times before. Because she had. Just not here. Not in the safe, controlled environment of a training base where injuries were supposed to be minor. "Talk to me, Jackson. Where are you from?" "Well, what?" "Where are you from? Keep talking." "Ohio, Cleveland." "Yeah? You a Browns fan?" "Hell yeah." "That's rough." She worked while she talked, her hands never stopping. "They break your heart every season?" "Every damn year." His breathing was steadying, color creeping back into his face. Within 3 minutes, the bleeding slowed to a manageable level. Within 5, it stopped completely. She sat back on her heels, checking her work. Clean, controlled, textbook. "You're going to be fine," she said quietly, packing her kit. "But you're done showing off for the day." Jackson managed a weak laugh. "Yes, ma'am." The recruit who'd been applying pressure looked at her with something close to awe. "Holy hell, Carter, that was textbook." She stood, wiping her hands on a clean cloth. Get him to the hospital wing. Tell them I sent you. They'll know what to do. She walked away before they could ask questions. Before anyone could wonder where she'd learned to move like that, to work like that, to command like that. Behind her, someone muttered, "Did you see her hands? They didn't even shake." Someone else, "Yeah, but she's a nurse. That's literally her job." "I don't know, man. That didn't look like regular nurse stuff." Elena kept walking. That night, the mess hall buzzed with the story. She sat in her usual spot, corner table, back to the wall, tray of food she barely touched, and listened to them piece together something they didn't understand. Jackson would have bled out if she hadn't been there. She moved like a combat medic. Nah, combat medics aren't that fast. That was something else. Maybe she trained as one before she washed out? Elena ate her potatoes and said nothing. Let them wonder, let them talk. It didn't change anything, but Captain Briggs noticed. He found her the next morning before dawn, waiting outside the medical bay when she arrived for her shift. Arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes sharp with something that looked like suspicion. "Carter." She stopped, key still in her hand. "Sir?" "Heard you played hero yesterday?" "I did my job." "Your job." He stepped closer, lowering his voice even though they were alone. "Your job is to hand out Band-Aids and ice packs, not show up my combat medics with fancy trauma work." She said nothing, just held his gaze, steady and unflinching. "Where'd you learn to work a tourniquet like that?" "Training, sir." "What training?" "Basic medical, same as everyone else." "Bullshit." The word came out flat, certain. "I've seen basic medical training. That wasn't it." She waited, knowing he wasn't done. He leaned in closer, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I don't know what you think you're proving, Carter. I don't know what game you're playing, but this tough girl act, it doesn't fly here. You're soft. You'll always be soft. And one decent save doesn't change that." "Understood, sir." He waited, like he expected her to argue, to defend herself, to give him something to latch onto. When she didn't, he scoffed and walked away, his boots heavy on the concrete. Elena unlocked the medical bay and went inside. The coffee she'd brought was already cold. She drank it anyway. 2 weeks passed. The incident faded into base gossip, replaced by newer stories, fresher drama. Elena went back to being invisible, which suited her just fine. Then the mandatory marksmanship test was announced. Every person on base, combat personnel, logistics staff, medical personnel, even the kitchen crew, had to qualify annually. Standard protocol, non-negotiable. Elena had avoided it last cycle with a scheduling conflict that wasn't entirely accidental. This time, there was no way out. The notice went up on Friday. Testing started Monday. She had a weekend to prepare, which meant a weekend to dread. She hadn't touched a rifle in 2 years. Hadn't wanted to. The weight, the kick, the smell of gunpowder, all of it brought back things she'd worked hard to bury. But there was no getting around it. Miss the test, face disciplinary action. Fail the test, face questions about her qualifications. Pass the test. Well, that came with its own problems. She showed up Monday morning before dawn, hoping to beat the crowds and get it over with quickly. The range was empty except for one grizzled sergeant setting up targets. He looked like he'd been doing this job since before she was born. Weathered skin, gray stubble, eyes that had seen everything twice and weren't impressed by any of it. He glanced at her, mildly surprised. "You're early." "Wanted to beat the rush." "Smart." He gestured toward the rifle rack with his chin. "Standard M4, 50 meters, 5 rounds. Don't overthink it." She approached the rack slowly, scanning the weapons. They were all identical, mass-produced military standard. She picked one at random, checked the weight, the balance. Her hands remembered before her brain did. Safety check, magazine check, sight alignment. Muscle memory flooded back so fast it almost hurt. "You good?" the sergeant asked, watching her with more interest now. "Yeah." She raised the rifle, settling it against her shoulder. The weight felt wrong at first, too light, too new, too clean. She adjusted her stance, compensating for the difference. "Whenever you're ready." She took a breath, found her center. The world narrowed to the target downrange, everything else falling away. Exhale halfway. Hold, squeeze. The first shot punched through the center ring. Muscle memory. Nothing more. Second shot, same spot. Her heartbeat was too fast. She forced it to slow. Third shot, center mass. This was a mistake. She should have missed a few, should have shot like someone who barely qualified, someone forgettable. Fourth shot, dead center again. Too late now. Fifth shot, final round. She almost pulled it left on purpose, almost gave them something less than perfect, but her hands wouldn't let her. They remembered excellence, remembered precision, remembered when her life and a dozen others depended on shots just like these. Center ring, perfect grouping. She lowered the rifle slowly, ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber. The sergeant was staring at the target through his binoculars, then at her, then back at the target. You practice a lot? Not really. Right. He didn't sound convinced. He walked down range himself, examined the target up close, came back shaking his head. That's a perfect score. When's the last time you qualified? 2 years ago. Different base. What'd you shoot then? She met his eyes. Does it matter? He studied her for a long moment, then shrugged. I guess not. You're good to go, Carter. Next time maybe leave some pride for the rest of us. She returned the rifle to the rack and left before anyone else showed up. But the damage was already done. By 0800, when the first wave of recruits arrived for their qualification, the range sergeant was already telling the story. By lunch, half the base had heard. By dinner, everyone knew. Carter, the soft nurse who couldn't hack it, had just shot a perfect score. And that's when things started to unravel. Captain Briggs heard about it during lunch. He was in the officers' mess, halfway through a sandwich that tasted like cardboard, when Lieutenant Mills dropped into the seat across from him. You hear about Carter? Briggs didn't look up. What about her? Shot perfect at Qualls this morning. All 5 rounds, dead center. Sergeant Davies said it was the cleanest grouping he's seen all year. Briggs stopped chewing. Carter? Our Carter? Medical Bay Carter. Yeah. He set down his sandwich, appetite gone. That's impossible. Davies doesn't lie about scores. Briggs stood, left his tray, and headed straight for the range office. He found the logs himself, scanned down to Carter's name, saw the score with his own eyes. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. He crumpled the page in his fist, then smoothed it out, read it again like the numbers might change. They didn't. Get her to my office, he told Mills. Now. Elena was restocking supplies when Mills found her. She knew what was coming before he even opened his mouth. Captain wants to see you. When? 5 minutes ago. She washed her hands, dried them slowly, and followed Mills across the base to Briggs' office. He was waiting inside, standing behind his desk, the crumpled range report in his hand. Close the door, he said without looking at her. Mills left. The door clicked shut. Briggs finally looked up, his expression somewhere between anger and confusion. You want to explain to me how a nurse who couldn't handle the field just outshot half my combat unit? I qualified, sir. That's all. That's all? His voice rose. That's all. You don't get scores like that from luck, Carter. You don't get perfect groupings by accident. Where'd you train? Basic, like everyone else. Bullshit. He slammed the report on his desk. Basic doesn't produce shooters like this. I've been in this military for 23 years. I know what basic training looks like, and this isn't it. She said nothing. Her hands were clasped behind her back, her posture neutral, her face giving away nothing. He came around the desk, got close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath. You're hiding something. I can feel it, and I'm going to find out what. I'm not hiding anything, sir. Then why do I feel like you're lying to my face? I couldn't say, sir. The silence stretched between them, tight and dangerous. Briggs was breathing hard through his nose, his jaw working like he was chewing through his own frustration. Finally, he stepped back. You think you're clever, you think you're special, but you're not. You're just another burnout who couldn't cut it and ran to the easy job, and one lucky test doesn't change that. Understood, sir. Get out. She left without a word, closing the door quietly behind her. But the damage was done. The questions wouldn't stop now. And deep down, Elena knew it. The fragile anonymity she'd built over 6 months was starting to crack, and she had no idea how to stop it. That night, she sat alone in her barracks, staring at the small locker beside her bunk. She hadn't opened it in months. hadn't wanted to. But now her hands moved on their own, working the combination, pulling open the metal door. At the bottom, beneath civilian clothes and forgotten paperbacks, was a small velvet bag. She pulled it out, felt the weight of it in her palm. Old dog tags. Not hers, not the ones she'd been issued at basic. These were different, worn, scratched. The metal was dull, the chain frayed. She hadn't touched them in 2 years, hadn't wanted to. But now, holding them in her palm, she felt the weight of everything she'd left behind. The missions, the blood, the choices that still woke her up at night, gasping, her sheets soaked with sweat. She'd come to Iron Vale to disappear, to be small, to be invisible, to forget. Maybe that was never going to work. She put the tags back, closed the locker, and lay down on her bunk. Sleep didn't come easy. It never did. The next 2 days were tense. Briggs watched her like a hawk, looking for mistakes, inconsistencies, anything he could use to prove his suspicions. The other officers followed his lead, their conversation stopping when she walked by, their eyes tracking her movements. The recruits were different. They'd started looking at her with something new, not quite respect, but not dismissal either. Curiosity, maybe. Uncertainty. "Hey, Carter," one of them said during a routine checkup. "That score you shot, that for real? It's in the system." "Yeah, but like, how? You don't even carry a weapon." "Don't need to." "But you could, if you wanted." She finished wrapping his sprained wrist in silence, then met his eyes. "Your wrist is fine. Ice it tonight. Next question?" He left without asking another one. Thursday afternoon, 3 days after the test, Elena was in the supply closet when she heard raised voices in the hallway. "I'm telling you, something's off about her." "Briggs." She recognized his voice immediately. "You're obsessing, Marcus." Another voice. Colonel Hayes, the base commander. Older, calmer, the kind of voice that had authority without needing to shout. She passed a marksmanship test. That's her job. A perfect score isn't just passing. That's specialized training. So she's a good shot. Maybe she grew up hunting. Look at her record. It's too clean. No details, no background, nothing before she showed up here 6 months ago. Her file cleared security. That's enough. Is it? A pause. Elena pressed closer to the door, listening. "What are you really worried about?" Hayes asked. "I don't trust her." "You don't like being wrong about her. There's a difference." Footsteps, moving away. The conversation faded. Elena exhaled slowly, leaning against the shelves. Hayes was right. Briggs didn't like being wrong, and he wouldn't let this go. She needed to be more careful. Smaller. Quieter. She was running out of time. Friday morning, the emergency alarm shattered the routine. It started at 0847, a blaring klaxon that sent everyone scrambling. Elena was in the medical bay cataloging medications when the sound hit. "All personnel, this is not a drill. Emergency situation in Sector 7. All medical and tactical teams report immediately. Repeat, this is not a drill." She grabbed her kit and ran. The training field was chaos when she arrived. Smoke billowed from the far end where the advanced combat simulator was located. A $1 million system designed to create realistic battlefield scenarios with computer-controlled opposition. Except something had gone catastrophically wrong. "What happened?" she shouted at the first officer she saw. "Simulation went live. The system's not responding to override commands. We've got 5 recruits trapped inside with active fire protocols running." "Active fire?" Her blood went cold. "You mean simunition rounds? They're not lethal, but at this range, with this volume..." He didn't need to finish. She understood. Simunition, marking rounds designed to sting, to teach, to simulate danger. But in overwhelming numbers at close range, they could cause serious injury. Broken bones, internal bleeding, trauma. Where's tactical? Mobilizing. But the system's got automated defenses. Every time we try to approach, it targets us. It's treating everyone as hostile. Elena scanned the field. Through the smoke, she could see the simulator building, a concrete structure designed to mimic urban combat environments. Inside, 5 recruits were pinned down, and a malfunctioning AI was hunting them with weapons that could hurt them badly. How long until override? Tech team says 15 minutes minimum. They don't have 15 minutes. An automated turret swiveled near the building entrance, tracking movement. She watched it scan, lock, fire. 3 simunition rounds hit the ground where someone had tried to advance. The person scrambled back behind cover. This was bad. This was very bad. Carter, I need you on standby for casualties. As soon as we extract those recruits, I see them. Her voice was distant, calculating. She was already moving, not toward the medical station, but toward the equipment shed on the east side of the field. Carter, where are you going? She didn't answer. Her mind was working through variables, angles, possibilities. The automated turret was the problem. It sat on a raised platform 300 meters from her current position, scanning in a 180-degree arc. Its control module was visible on the upper left quadrant, a small, vulnerable point that would shut down the entire system if damaged. 1 shot. That's all it would take. She found what she needed in the equipment shed: a rifle, a scope, ammunition, standard issue, nothing fancy. It would do. Carter, stand down, that's an order. She recognized the voice. Lieutenant Mills, probably trying to be helpful. She ignored him and headed for the observation tower on the west side of the field. Someone stop her. No one did. They were too focused on the crisis, too scattered, too uncertain. The tower ladder was old, rusted, shaky under her weight. She climbed it anyway, the rifle slung across her back, her kit banging against her hip. At the top, she dropped into a prone position on the platform, assembling the shot in her mind. Distance, 300 meters. Wind, southwest, maybe 8 miles per hour based on the smoke drift. Target, control module, upper left quadrant, roughly 4 inches square. This was insane. She was insane for even considering it. But those recruits were running out of time, and no one else was taking the shot. She settled the rifle against her shoulder, adjusted for wind, for distance, for the slight elevation difference. The scope brought the target into sharp focus, a small black box with blinking lights, barely visible against the turret housing. 4 inches, at 300 meters. With equipment she hadn't zeroed herself. She'd made harder shots. In worse conditions. With more at stake. But that was a long time ago, in a life she'd left behind. In a war she'd promised herself she was done fighting. Her hands were steady, her breathing was controlled, but inside something was screaming at her to stop, to put the rifle down, to stay invisible. Down below, someone was shouting into a radio. "We need that override now! Those kids are getting hammered in there!" Through the scope, she could see movement in the simulator building. One of the recruits, young, terrified, was bleeding from a head wound. Simunition round at close range. He needed help. They all did. Elena closed her eyes, took 3 slow breaths, opened them. The world narrowed to a single point. Everything else, the shouting, the smoke, the fear, fell away. In through the nose, out through the mouth, heartbeat slowing, 70 beats per minute, 60, 50, 1 shot. Don't miss. She exhaled halfway, held it. Her finger found the trigger, squeezed, smooth, steady. The rifle cracked. 300 meters downrange, the control module sparked, shuddered, and went dark. The automated turret froze mid-scan, its weapons powering down. Silence fell across the field like a curtain dropping. Then, go, go, go! Get those recruits out! Move! Tactical teams rushed forward. The simulator building was breached within seconds. The trapped recruits were extracted, wounded but alive. Elena stayed on the tower, staring at the rifle in her hands. Her fingers were trembling now, just slightly, just enough to notice. The smell of gunpowder filled her nose, familiar and terrible. She'd done it again. Couldn't help herself, couldn't walk away. Carter! She looked down. Someone was climbing the ladder, not running, not rushing, but moving with the kind of deliberate purpose that meant trouble. Colonel Hayes reached the top, breathing hard despite his fitness. He was older than Briggs, mid-50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that had seen too much of the world to be fooled easily. He stood there for a moment, just staring at her, at the rifle, at the distant turret still smoking from her shot. That was a 300-meter shot, he said slowly, on a 4-inch target in active wind conditions with equipment you've never zeroed. She lowered the rifle, ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber. Muscle memory. Yes, sir. Who the hell are you? Before she could answer, Before she could figure out what lie might work, a voice crackled over Hayes' radio. "Colonel Hayes, this is Command. We've got a situation. Carter's personnel file just flagged classified clearance. Repeat, classified clearance. She's not standard medical personnel. We're pulling her full record now." Hayes' expression shifted. Surprise, understanding, recognition, something close to respect. He reached for his radio. "Command, this is Hayes. Delay that pull. I'll handle this personally." "Sir, protocol requires—" "I said I'll handle it. Hayes out." He looked at Elena again, different now. Not like she was a problem, like she was a puzzle he was finally starting to solve. "Medic Carter," he said slowly, testing the words. "Or should I say, Sergeant Carter? Staff Sergeant? What was your real rank?" The name, her real rank, hit her like a physical blow. She hadn't heard it in 2 years, hadn't wanted to. "It's just Elena now, sir." "No." Hayes shook his head slowly. "It's really not." Behind them, the base was erupting, officers converging, medics treating the wounded recruits, tactical teams securing the malfunctioning simulator. Questions flying, radios crackling, the truth spreading like wildfire through the ranks. And in his office, Captain Marcus Briggs sat frozen at his desk, staring at a file that had just appeared on his computer screen. A file he'd requested 3 days ago and been denied access to. A file that someone in command had finally sent him, marked classified, clearance required. He read it once, twice. His hands started shaking. Carter, Elena. Marie rank, Staff Sergeant E6. Specialty, Special Operations Combat Medic Unit Attachment, Tier 1. Operations, details redacted. Combat deployments, 7 confirmed enemy kills. 17 personnel saved under fire, 43. Decorations, Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Bronze Star, 2. Purple Heart, 1. Discharge, Status, Honorable, Discharge. Reason, redacted, classified. He scrolled down looking for more details, but most of the file was blacked out. Entire sections redacted, entire deployments erased from official record. What he could see was enough. The woman he'd called soft had more combat experience than half his officer corps combined. The woman he'd dismissed as a failed medic had saved more lives and taken more enemy fire than most soldiers would see in their entire careers. And he'd mocked her, humiliated her, pushed her around like she was nothing. His stomach turned to ice. By sunset, the entire base knew. Word spread like lightning through the barracks, the mess hall, every corner where soldiers gathered and talked. The nurse they'd dismissed, the woman they'd mocked, the person they'd treated like furniture. She wasn't running from weakness. She was running from a war she'd already won. Elena sat in Colonel Hayes' office as the sun went down, painting the desert sky in shades of orange and red. He'd asked her to come willingly, and she had, because there was no point running anymore. The file was open on his desk between them. He'd read it 3 times. Now he was looking at her, trying to reconcile the quiet woman in front of him with the soldier described in those pages. 7 deployments, he said quietly. Most of them black ops. Classified missions we'll never hear about. She said nothing. 17 kills, all confirmed, all justified. He paused. 43 saves, under fire, in situations where most medics would have frozen. Still nothing. "And you're here. Why? Why Iron Veil? Why waste your skills on basic training injuries?" She finally looked at him. "Because I was tired." "Of what?" "Everything." The word came out hollow. The missions, the choices, the weight. Hayes leaned back in his chair, studying her. "What happened on your last deployment, the one that got you discharged?" "It's redacted." "I can see that. I'm asking anyway." Elena was quiet for a long moment. Outside, she could hear the base winding down, vehicles moving, voices calling, the everyday sounds of a military installation at dusk. Finally, she spoke. "We lost someone important, and I made a call, the right call, tactically, but it cost us." "Cost you what?" "Everything I believed about who I was." She met his eyes. "I came here to be small, to be invisible, to forget. And now? Now everyone knows. Hayes nodded slowly. Yes, they do. He closed the file, set it aside. The question is, what do we do about it? I don't want reinstatement. I don't want a promotion. I don't want any of it. I understand. But that shot today, those recruits would be in critical condition right now if you hadn't taken it. You saved lives, Elena. That matters. I know. So what do you want? She thought about it, really thought about it, for the first time in 2 years. I want to do my job, just my job. No spotlight, no questions, no hero worship. Hayes smiled just slightly. I think that ship has sailed. He was right. She could feel it already. The shift, the change, the way people would look at her differently now. The questions that would come, the expectations. There's someone you need to talk to, Hayes said, standing. Wait here. He left the office. She sat alone, watching the sun disappear below the horizon. 5 minutes later, the door opened. Captain Briggs walked in. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last few hours. His uniform was wrinkled, his face pale, his hands clenched at his sides. He stood in front of her, opened his mouth, closed it. Tried again. His voice cracked. I owe you an apology. Elena said nothing. I was wrong. About you. About everything. He swallowed hard. I treated you like you were nothing. Like you were weak. And you're... He gestured helplessly at the file on Hayes' desk. You're not. No, she said quietly. I'm not. I'm sorry. The words hung in the air. She could tell they cost him something. Pride, maybe, or the image he had of himself as someone who was always right. Okay, she said finally. That's it? Just okay? What else do you want? Forgiveness? Absolution? She stood, meeting his eyes. You were cruel because you could be, because I let you. That's on both of us. No, it's on me. Fine, it's on you. She moved toward the door. But it's done now. Over. Colonel Hayes is recommending disciplinary action against me. She stopped, turned. Why? Abuse of authority, creating a hostile work environment. He's right. Elena studied him for a moment. He looked broken, defeated. Part of her, the part that had endured 6 months of his casual cruelty, wanted to let him fall. But a larger part, the part that had dragged wounded soldiers out of firefights and held dying hands in the dark, knew that revenge was empty. Tell Hayes to drop it, she said. Briggs blinked. What? Tell him to drop the disciplinary action. You were an ass. You know it, I know it. That's punishment enough. Elena, don't. She cut him off. Don't make this into something it's not. I'm not being generous. I'm being practical. This base doesn't need more drama, and I don't need you as a martyr. She left before he could respond, closing the door quietly behind her. Outside, the night air was cool, almost cold after the heat of the day. She walked slowly back toward her barracks, her mind spinning. Everything had changed in less than 12 hours. The anonymity she'd built, the quiet life she'd carved out, gone. Shattered by one shot, one moment of instinct she couldn't suppress. She'd wanted to disappear. Instead, she'd been found. And now, walking alone across the dark base, Elena Carter realized something she'd been avoiding for 2 years. You can leave the battlefield, but the battlefield never really leaves you. It lives in your hands, in your instincts, in the choices you make when everything falls apart. She wasn't running anymore. Couldn't run anymore. The question was, what came next? Behind her in the distance, she heard voices. Recruits talking, laughing, the easy camaraderie of people who'd never seen real combat. One of them mentioned her name. Another laughed, not mocking this time, but impressed. Did you see that shot? 300 meters, 1 round, done. I heard she used to run missions we'll never hear about. Think she'd teach us? Elena kept walking, a small smile touching her lips. Maybe. Maybe not. But for the first time in 2 years, she wasn't afraid of the answer. The next morning started differently. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through her barracks window and voices outside. Not the usual rough banter of recruits, but something quieter, more cautious. She checked her watch. 5:45. 15 minutes before her alarm. She dressed quickly, grabbed her kit, and stepped outside. 3 recruits stood near her door. When they saw her, they straightened, uncertain whether to salute or scatter. "Ma'am," one of them said, a kid named Porter, maybe 20, with nervous eyes. "We were wondering, if you have time, spit it out. Could you teach us about breathing control for marksmanship?" Elena studied them. They looked genuinely curious, not mocking. That was new. "You have instructors for that." "Yeah, but—" Porter hesitated. "They're not you." She almost said no. Almost told them to get back to their regular training and leave her alone. But something stopped her. Maybe the earnest hope in their faces, maybe the realization that saying no would just make them more curious. "Fine. Tomorrow. 600. East Range. Bring your own rifles. Don't be late." Their faces lit up. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am." They practically ran off, already talking excitedly among themselves. Elena sighed and headed to the medical bay. This was exactly what she'd wanted to avoid. Attention, expectations, people looking at her like she had answers. But the cat was out of the bag now, claws and all. The medical bay felt different when she unlocked the door. Same linoleum floors, same stale coffee smell, same everything. But she felt exposed here now, like the walls had thinned overnight. She'd barely started her morning inventory when Colonel Hayes appeared in the doorway. "Got a minute?" "Yes, sir." He came inside, closed the door behind him. His face was serious but not angry, more thoughtful, like he was working through a problem. "I've been thinking about your situation. My situation. You're good at what you do, Elena. Better than good. But this base isn't equipped to handle someone with your skill set properly." Her stomach tightened. "Are you reassigning me?" "No, I'm asking what you want." He leaned against the counter. "You could request a transfer, go back to active special operations. They'd take you in a heartbeat." "I don't want that." "I know, but I need to hear why." Elena set down the clipboard she'd been holding. "Because I'm done with that life. Done with the missions, the secrecy, the choices that keep you up at night. I came here to be normal. And how's that working out?" She almost laughed. "Not great." Hayes nodded slowly. "Here's the thing. You can't be invisible anymore. That's over. So you've got 2 options. Fight it and make yourself miserable, or accept it and figure out how to use it." "Use it how?" "Train them." He gestured vaguely toward the base beyond the walls. "These recruits, they're green, undertrained, overconfident. Half of them won't survive their first real deployment if someone doesn't teach them better. You could do that. I'm medical personnel, not an instructor. You're whatever I say you are, and right now I'm saying you could save a lot of lives by sharing what you know." Elena was quiet for a long moment. Outside, she heard the morning roll call starting, voices shouting names and numbers. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "That's all I'm asking." Hayes moved toward the door, then paused. "By the way, Captain Briggs submitted a formal apology this morning and a request to be reassigned." "He what?" "Says he can't work effectively here anymore. Not after, everything." Hayes studied her face. "You didn't have to defend him last night. Most people wouldn't have." "I didn't do it for him." "I know, but it matters anyway." He opened the door. "Think about my offer. We need people like you, Elena. People who know the cost and still choose to teach." He left before she could respond. The morning appointments were routine. Twisted ankle, mild dehydration, one case of what was probably the flu. But every person who came through looked at her differently now, some with respect, some with curiosity, a few with something like awe. It made her skin crawl. By lunch, she'd had enough. She grabbed a protein bar from her desk and headed outside, looking for somewhere quiet. She found it near the perimeter fence in the shadow of an old equipment shed, sat down on a concrete barrier, and unwrapped her food. "Mind if I join you?" She looked up. Lieutenant Mills stood there, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. "Free country." He sat down a few feet away, leaving space between them. For a minute, neither of them spoke. "I owe you an apology," Mills said finally. "I should have stopped Briggs from pushing you around." Should have said something. Why didn't you? Because I'm a coward. He said it matter-of-factly, without self-pity. I saw what was happening, knew it was wrong. But Briggs was my superior, and I didn't want to make waves. Elena took a bite of her protein bar. It tasted like cardboard. You're telling me this why? Because I want to be better. And I figure if anyone knows about second chances, it's you. She studied him. Mills was young for a lieutenant, maybe 30, with the kind of earnest face that probably got him underestimated a lot. You want advice? Yeah. Stop apologizing and start doing different. Words are cheap. Action is what counts. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. He stood, brushed off his pants. For what it's worth, that shot yesterday? That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. It was just a shot. No, it wasn't. He met her eyes. It was someone choosing to help when they didn't have to. That matters. He walked away before she could respond. Elena finished her protein bar alone, watching the desert shimmer in the afternoon heat. People kept surprising her, some good, some bad, most somewhere in between. She'd forgotten that, in her 2 years of hiding. Forgotten that humans were complicated, messy, capable of change. Maybe she'd been wrong to write them all off. That evening, she kept her word and showed up at the East Range at 05:55 the next morning. Porter was already there with 2 friends, Jackson, the guy she'd saved from bleeding out, and a woman named Rodriguez with sharp eyes and a sharper attitude. You're early, Elena said. Didn't want to miss it, Porter replied. She had them spread out on the firing line, checked their stances, their grip, their breathing. You're all doing it wrong, she said bluntly. Rodriguez bristled. Our instructors said, your instructors taught you to pass a test. I'm teaching you to survive. Elena moved behind Porter, adjusted his shoulders. Marksmanship isn't about strength, it's about control. You force it, you miss. You let it happen, you hit. She worked with them for 45 minutes, correcting tiny things. Finger position, breathing rhythm, the way they squeezed instead of pulled the trigger. By the end, Porter's grouping had tightened by 3 inches. Jackson was actually hitting center mass consistently. Rodriguez was still fighting her instincts, but she was trying. Tomorrow, same time, Elena said. Bring anyone who's serious about learning. Leave the gawkers at home. Yes, ma'am. Word spread fast. By the second session, she had 8 recruits. By the fourth, 15. By the end of the week, she was running 2 sessions, one at dawn, one at dusk, and still turning people away. Colonel Hayes watched from a distance, saying nothing. But she caught him smiling once, and she knew what it meant. She was teaching, and she was good at it, but not everyone was happy about it. 2 weeks after the simulator incident, Elena was leaving the evening range session when she heard voices arguing near the barracks. She recognized one of them immediately. Sergeant Dawson, the one who'd called her sweetheart and made jokes about her gentle touch. I'm telling you, it's a joke, he was saying to someone. She gets one lucky shot and suddenly everyone thinks she's some kind of hero. That wasn't luck. The other voice, younger, uncertain. Sure it was. Right place, right time. She's still just a nurse playing soldier. Elena stepped around the corner. Something you want to say to my face, Dawson? He spun, surprised. Then his expression hardened into something ugly. Yeah, actually. I think this whole thing is bullshit. You've got everyone fooled, but I see through it. See through what? This act, this tough girl routine. You couldn't hack it in the field, so you bailed and hid in medical. Now you're pretending you were some kind of operator? Please. The other person, a recruit Elena didn't know, looked uncomfortable and walked away quickly. Elena stepped closer to Dawson. You think I'm pretending? I know you are. Then you don't know anything. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle. And that's going to be a problem for you. Is that a threat? It's a fact. You're so busy being bitter that you can't see what's right in front of you. And what's that? That I don't need to prove anything to you or anyone else. She moved past him, her shoulder brushing his. But keep talking. Keep making yourself look small. It's working. She walked away, her hands steady, her heart rate normal. But inside, something cold and sharp had woken up. The part of her that knew how to handle threats, how to read danger, how to end problems before they started. She'd thought she'd left that part behind. Maybe she'd been wrong. The next day, during routine morning rounds, Elena was treating a sprained wrist when Lieutenant Mills burst into the medical bay. "We've got a situation. Training exercise gone wrong in Sector 4. She was already moving. How many injured? At least 3, maybe more. It's complicated." They ran across the base together. Mills filled her in as they moved. A rappelling exercise had failed when old equipment gave way. Multiple recruits had fallen 15 feet onto rocky ground. When they arrived, chaos greeted them. 2 recruits were conscious but immobilized, afraid to move because of back pain. A third was unconscious, bleeding from a head wound, and Sergeant Dawson was in charge of the scene, barking orders that made no sense. "Get them up! We need to clear this area." "Stop!" Elena's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Nobody moves them." Dawson turned, his face red. "I'm in command here, Carter. You don't give orders. Those 2 have potential spinal injuries. You move them wrong, they're paralyzed for life. Is that what you want?" "They're fine. They're just scared." Elena ignored him and moved to the first recruit, a kid named Morrison, pale and shaking. "Where does it hurt?" My back. I can't feel my legs." "Okay, don't move. We're going to stabilize you." She looked at Mills. "Get me backboards, 2 of them, and cervical collars." Mills ran. Dawson grabbed her arm. "I said I'm in command." She looked at his hand on her arm, then at his face. Something in her expression made him let go. "You want to be in command?" she said quietly. "Then command. Tell everyone to step back and give me room to work. Or get out of my way and let someone competent handle it." For a moment she thought he might actually swing at her. His jaw clenched, his fists balled up, his whole body radiating fury. Then Colonel Hayes appeared, seemingly from nowhere. "Problem, Sergeant?" Dawson straightened. "No, sir. Just coordinating the response." "Good. Then coordinate by doing exactly what Medic Carter tells you." Hayes looked at Elena. "What do you need?" "Backboards, collars, ambulance on standby, and everyone except essential personnel backs up 20 feet. You heard her. Move!" The crowd dispersed. Mills returned with the equipment. Elena worked quickly, efficiently, stabilizing Morrison first, then the second recruit with back pain. The third, the unconscious one, required more care, possible skull fracture, definite concussion, bleeding that needed immediate pressure. She worked for 20 minutes straight, her hands never shaking, her voice never wavering. By the time the ambulance arrived, all 3 recruits were stable and ready for transport. Hayes pulled her aside as they loaded the last one. "You saved their lives. Again. I did my job. It's more than that. You know it is." She looked at Dawson, who was standing apart from everyone else, his face dark with humiliation and rage. "He's going to be a problem," she said quietly. "I'll handle him." "No, let me." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "How?" "By doing exactly what I've been doing, being better. Eventually, he'll either learn or he'll break. And if he breaks badly," Elena met his eyes, "then we'll deal with it." That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the day. Morrison's terrified face, Dawson's fury, Hayes' quiet confidence in her. She'd spent 2 years trying to be invisible, and now she was more visible than ever. Teaching recruits, saving lives, making enemies. This wasn't what she'd wanted, but maybe it was what she needed. At 200, she gave up on sleep and went outside. The desert night was cold, the stars bright and sharp overhead. She walked to the perimeter fence and stood there, breathing the clean air. Couldn't sleep either. She turned. Rodriguez stood a few feet away, also in civilian clothes, hands in her pockets. "Guess not." Rodriguez came closer, leaned against the fence beside her. "That thing today, with Morrison. That was incredible. It was routine." "No, it wasn't." Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" "Depends on the question." "Why'd you leave? Special ops, I mean. If you were that good, why walk away?" Elena was silent for a long time. The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Because being good at something doesn't mean it's good for you, she said finally. I don't understand. You will. Eventually, if you stay in long enough. Elena pushed off the fence. Get some sleep, Rodriguez. You've got early range practice. Yes, ma'am. Elena walked back to her barracks alone, her thoughts churning. She'd given Rodriguez a real answer, maybe more real than she'd intended. Being good at war didn't make war good. Being good at killing didn't make killing right. She'd learned that the hard way, in places she couldn't talk about, doing things she'd never forget. Coming to Iron Vale had been an escape, but maybe it was also a second chance. The next morning brought new problems. Elena was running her dawn session when a staff car pulled up to the range. Colonel Hayes stepped out, along with someone she didn't recognize, a woman in civilian clothes with federal agent written all over her. Carter, a word. Elena left the recruits to practice and walked over. Up close, the woman was maybe 40, with cold eyes and a colder smile. This is Special Agent Vance, Hayes said. She's with military intelligence. She has some questions about your service record. Elena's stomach went cold. My record is sealed. Sealed, yes. Not forgotten. Vance's smile didn't reach her eyes. I'm here because someone requested information about you. Someone with clearance high enough to trigger flags. Who? Can't say. But they're asking questions about your last deployment, the one that got you discharged. The world tilted slightly. Elena kept her face neutral, but inside everything was screaming. That mission is classified. I'm aware, which is why I'm here to remind you that discussing it with anyone at all, would be a violation of federal law. Vance stepped closer. You've been making waves, Sergeant Carter, drawing attention. That's dangerous for someone with your history. I'm not using my rank anymore. No, but you're still using your skills, and people notice. Vance pulled out a business card, handed it over. If anyone asks about your past, you call me immediately. Understood? Elena took the card. Understood. Vance nodded to Hayes and walked back to the car. It drove away, leaving dust in its wake. Hayes turned to Elena. What was that about? Exactly what she said. A reminder. Of what? That some things don't stay buried. Elena looked at the card, then pocketed it. I need to get back to my session. Elena? I'm fine, sir. She walked back to the range, her mind racing. Someone was asking questions about her. Someone with enough clearance to trigger intelligence community protocols. That meant someone high up, someone with access, someone who knew what she'd done and why she'd left. The question was, why now? After 2 years of silence, why start digging? She pushed the thoughts aside and focused on her recruits. Porter was improving steadily. Jackson had natural talent, but lacked discipline. Rodriguez was all discipline and no instinct. She worked with them for another hour, her mind half on the training, half on the problem she couldn't see but could feel creeping closer. That afternoon, she was inventorying supplies when her door opened without a knock. Sergeant Dawson stood there, his face flushed with anger or alcohol or both. We need to talk. Make an appointment. This can't wait. He came inside, closed the door. You've made a fool of me. In front of everyone. Elena set down her clipboard carefully. I've done my job. If that makes you look bad, that's on you. You think you're so much better than everyone else. I think I'm trained differently. There's a difference. You're a fraud. His voice rose. Playing soldier, playing hero. But I know the truth. What truth is that? You washed out. Couldn't handle it. That's why you're here, hiding in medical. Elena stood slowly, meeting his eyes. She was smaller than him by 6 inches and 50 pounds, but she didn't look away. You're drunk, Dawson. Go sleep it off. Or what? You'll shoot me? He laughed bitterly. That's all you've got, isn't it? One lucky shot and everyone thinks you're special. Last chance, walk away. Make me. The air in the room changed. Elena felt it shift, felt the old instincts rising. She'd spent 2 years suppressing them. But they were still there, sharp and ready. She took one step forward. You really want to do this? For a moment, Dawson hesitated. Something in her eyes, in her posture, and the absolute stillness of her voice made him reconsider. Then his pride won out. He reached for her, hands going for her shoulders. She moved. Not fast, not dramatic, just precise. She caught his wrist, twisted, used his momentum against him. 3 seconds later, Dawson was face down on the floor with his arm locked behind his back and Elena's knee between his shoulder blades. "Get off me!" "No." Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "Not until you understand something. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to embarrass you. I just want to do my job. But if you force my hand, I will end this, permanently. Do you understand?" "You're insane." She applied slightly more pressure to his locked arm. Not enough to injure, just enough to make the point. "Do you understand?" "Yes, yes, damn it." She released him and stepped back. He scrambled to his feet, his face red, breathing hard. "You just assaulted a superior officer. You came into my workspace drunk and tried to grab me. That's assault. I defended myself. That's protocol." She picked up her clipboard like nothing had happened. "But go ahead and report it. I'm sure Colonel Hayes will be fascinated to hear your version." Dawson stared at her, his chest heaving. For a moment she thought he might actually attack again. Instead, he turned and left, slamming the door behind him. Elena sat down slowly, her hands finally starting to shake. Not from fear, from adrenaline, from muscle memory, from the part of her that knew exactly how to handle threats like Dawson. She'd tried so hard to bury that part, but it kept surfacing, kept reminding her that some things couldn't be unlearned. 20 minutes later, Colonel Hayes showed up. "I just had a very interesting conversation with Sergeant Dawson. I can explain. He tried to resign, said he couldn't work here anymore, said you—" Hayes paused. "What exactly happened?" Elena told him everything. The confrontation, the physical altercation, her response. When she finished, Hayes was quiet for a long moment. "You could have seriously hurt him." "I know, I didn't." "Why not?" "Because hurting him would have proven his point, that I'm dangerous, out of control." She met his eyes. "I'm not, sir. I'm just trained." Hayes nodded slowly. "Dawson's gone. I'm accepting his resignation effective immediately." "You don't have to—" "Yes, I do. He's a liability. Has been for a while. You just forced me to see it." He moved toward the door. "You okay?" "Yes, sir." "Good, because tomorrow you've got a meeting with Base Command. They want to formalize your training program, make it official." Elena blinked. "Sir?" "You're good at this, Elena. Teaching, leading, and we need that." He smiled slightly. "Consider it a promotion, without the rank." He left before she could argue. Elena sat alone in the medical bay as the sun set, her mind spinning. Everything was changing so fast. Too fast. The quiet life she'd wanted was slipping further away with every day. And somewhere out there, someone was asking questions about her past. Questions that could unravel everything. She pulled out the business card Vance had given her, stared at it. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Carter. Sergeant Carter." The voice was male, cultured, unfamiliar. "We need to talk about Kandahar." Her blood turned to ice. Kandahar. The mission. The one that had ended everything. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what really happened, and someone who needs your help." "I'm not interested." "You will be. Tomorrow, 1400 hours, the old water tower on the north side. Come alone." The line went dead. Elena sat in the gathering darkness, the phone still pressed to her ear, her heart pounding. Kandahar. After 2 years of silence, someone knew, someone remembered, and they wanted something from her. She didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. The voice on the phone kept echoing in her head, calm, certain, dangerous. Someone who knew about Kandahar. Someone who wanted something. Elena sat on her bunk until 400, then gave up and went for a run. The desert air was cold and sharp, burning her lungs with each breath. She pushed harder, faster, trying to outrun thoughts that had teeth. Kandahar. The word alone opened doors she'd welded shut. By 0600 she was showering, By 0630, dressed and functional. By 700, she was at the medical bay, going through the motions of inventory like it mattered. Rodriguez showed up at 800 for early consultation about a persistent shoulder pain. "You look terrible, Chase," Rodriguez said bluntly. "Didn't sleep." "Why not?" Elena pressed on Rodriguez's shoulder, testing range of motion. "Rotator cuff inflammation. Ice it twice daily. Anti-inflammatories. No heavy lifting for a week." That wasn't an answer. "It's the only one you're getting." Elena made notes on her chart. "You're cleared for light duty." "Next?" Rodriguez left, but not before giving her a look that said they'd talk later. The morning crawled by. Every minute felt like 10. Elena kept checking the clock. 1000, 10:30, 1100. The meeting was at 1400. She had hours to kill and no idea what she was walking into. At 1200, she forced herself to eat lunch. Sandwich that tasted like cardboard. Coffee that sat in her stomach like acid. Colonel Hayes found her at 12:30. "Command meeting's been moved up to 1500. That work for you?" Her mind raced. The water tower meeting was at 1400. She'd have an hour, maybe less. "Yes, sir." "Good. They want to discuss formalizing your training role. Possible civilian contractor position, which would give you more flexibility. I appreciate it." Hayes studied her. "You sure you're okay? You seem off." "I'm fine, sir. Just tired." He didn't look convinced, but he nodded and left. Elena sat alone in the medical bay, staring at nothing. She had a choice to make. Ignore the call, pretend it never happened, show up to the command meeting and let her past stay buried. Or go to the water tower and find out what ghosts had followed her home. At 1345, she locked the medical bay and headed north. The old water tower sat at the edge of base property, a rusted monument to infrastructure no one maintained anymore. The area was technically restricted, unstable ground, old equipment, liability issues. No one came here except kids looking for a place to smoke. Elena approached slowly, scanning the area. No vehicles, no obvious surveillance, just heat shimmer and silence. She rounded the tower base and stopped. A man stood in the shadow, lean and weathered, maybe 50, with the kind of face that had seen too much sun and too much war. He wore civilian clothes but stood like military, weight balanced, hands loose, eyes constantly moving. "Sergeant Carter, thank you for coming. I'm not a sergeant anymore. Once special operations, always special operations." He stepped forward into the light. "My name's Marcus Webb, former Delta, currently freelance." "Freelance what?" "Solutions for people with complicated problems." Elena's hand moved instinctively toward her hip, where a sidearm would have been if she still carried one. "What do you want?" "To talk about Kandahar, about what really happened." "That mission is classified." "I know. I was there." Webb let that sink in. "Different unit, same operation. I saw what went down." Elena's blood ran cold. "You're lying." "Team leader was Captain Sullivan. Your unit was tasked with extracting a high-value target from a compound in the Jari district. The target was supposed to be alone. He wasn't." Webb's eyes were steady, unflinching. "You made a call. A hard one. People died because of it. Stop. You don't want to hear this? I don't need to hear it. I was there. I know what happened." "Do you?" Webb moved closer. "Because the official report says equipment failure, communication breakdown, acts of chance. But you and I both know that's not true." Elena's hands were shaking now. She clenched them into fists. "If you were there, you know it was classified for a reason. Talking about it is a federal crime. Only if someone reports it. And I'm not here to report you, Elena. I'm here to warn you." "About what?" "Someone's reopening the investigation. Someone with authority and a grudge. They're going through your record, looking for inconsistencies, building a case." "A case for what?" "Negligence, dereliction of duty, maybe worse." Webb pulled out a folder, handed it to her. "These are preliminary findings from the investigator. They think you made a bad call that got people killed. They want to court-martial you retroactively." Elena opened the folder with numb fingers. Inside were pages of documents, incident reports, witness statements, photos of the compound. and at the bottom, a name she recognized. Colonel Richard Voss, her former commanding officer. The man who'd signed off on her honorable discharge. Voss is pushing this? He's got political ambitions, Senate run next year, clean military record, decorated officer, all that. But his record has a stain, the Kandahar mission. If he can pin the failure on you, make you the scapegoat, it clears his name. That's insane. That's politics. Webb took the folder back. He's got friends in military intelligence. That's why the agent visited you yesterday. They're building the groundwork. Elena's mind spun. Everything made sense now. The questions, the warnings, the sudden interest in her past. What do you want from me? Nothing. I'm just giving you a heads up. You helped save my life in Kandahar, even if you didn't know it. I was part of the backup unit that extracted you after everything went to hell. I owe you. Consider this payback. Why should I trust you? Webb smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You shouldn't, but you also don't have a choice. Voss is coming for you, and when he does, you're going to need allies. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. The target you extracted? He wasn't who they said he was. The whole operation was built on bad intelligence. You didn't fail, Elena. The mission was doomed from the start. How do you know that? Because I've spent 2 years digging into it, and what I found... He shook his head. Let's just say there are people who don't want the truth coming out. Be careful who you trust. He walked away, disappearing into the desert heat. Elena stood alone by the water tower, her world tilting. For 2 years, she'd blamed herself for Kandahar, for the deaths, for the failure. She'd carried that weight like penance. Now, someone was telling her it wasn't her fault, but they were also telling her she was about to be destroyed for it anyway. She checked her watch. 14:25. She had 35 minutes to get to the command meeting. She ran. Colonel Hayes was already in the conference room when she arrived, slightly out of breath, her uniform dusty from the sprint across base. You're late. Sorry, sir. Lost track of time. He gave her a look that said he didn't believe her but wasn't going to push. Have a seat. Command's running behind anyway. She sat, trying to calm her racing heart. The folder Webb had shown her was burned into her memory. Photos of the compound, the target, the bodies. The door opened. 3 officers filed in. 2 she didn't recognize and 1 she did. Special Agent Vance, the intelligence officer from yesterday. Elena's stomach dropped. This is a security review, Vance said without preamble, taking a seat across from Elena. Standard procedure for personnel with classified backgrounds who've recently drawn public attention. Hayes frowned. I was told this was about formalizing Carter's training program. That too. But first we need to address some concerns. Vance opened a tablet, scrolled through something. Sergeant Carter, your service record shows an honorable discharge 2 years ago. Can you explain the circumstances? I completed my term of service and chose not to re-enlist. But that's the official story. But your discharge came immediately after a classified operation went wrong. An operation that resulted in multiple casualties. Hayes straightened. What is this about? I'm just asking questions, Colonel. Vance's eyes never left Elena. The operation in question has recently come under review. We're trying to establish a timeline of events and decision-making processes. That mission is sealed, Elena said carefully. I can't discuss it without clearance. I have clearance, so does everyone in this room. Vance leaned forward. What I don't have is a straight answer about what happened. The official report is vague, almost deliberately so. Then maybe there's a reason for that. Or maybe someone's hiding something. The air in the room went tense. Hayes stood. Agent Vance, unless you're charging Medic Carter with something specific, this conversation is over. I'm not charging her with anything, yet. Vance stood as well. But I'm recommending a full review of her service record and a formal inquiry into the Kandahar operation. Until that's complete, I'm advising that Carter be placed on administrative leave. Like hell, Hayes said flatly. It's not your call, Colonel. Actually, it is. Carter is medical personnel under my command. Unless you have a direct order from someone higher up the chain than me, she stays where she is. Vance and Hayes stared at each other across the table. The other 2 officers looked uncomfortable, like they wanted to be anywhere else. Finally, Vance gathered her tablet. This isn't over. No, Hayes agreed. It's not. Vance left. The other officers followed. The door closed with a heavy click. Hayes sat down slowly, his face grim. Want to tell me what that was really about? Elena took a breath. There's someone trying to reopen an old case. Someone with political connections. They want to use me as a scapegoat. For what? A mission that went wrong. People died. The official story doesn't match what actually happened. And what actually happened? I can't tell you. It's classified. Hayes rubbed his face. This is bad, Elena. If they're pushing for an inquiry, they've got backing, high-level backing. I know. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. He studied her for a long moment. Whatever you did out there, I trust you had good reasons. But you need to be smart about this. Get a lawyer, document everything. Don't talk to anyone without representation. Yes, sir. And Elena? He met her eyes. Whatever happens, I've got your back. Something in her chest tightened. After 2 years of being invisible, of being dismissed, someone was standing with her. Thank you, sir. She left the conference room and headed straight for her barracks. Her mind was racing, trying to piece together a strategy. Webb had warned her this was coming, but warning didn't equal preparation. She needed information, evidence, something to fight back with. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Carter, it's Webb. Meet me at the same place, 1 hour. I've got something you need to see. What? Proof that the mission was compromised from the start. The line went dead. Elena stared at her phone. This could be a trap. Webb could be working with Voss, gathering evidence, building a case. Or he could be telling the truth. She grabbed her jacket and headed back to the water tower. Webb was waiting, same spot, same stance. But this time he had a laptop. This is risky, he said, opening the computer. What I'm about to show you was obtained through channels that aren't exactly legal. I don't care about legal. I care about the truth. He turned the screen toward her. This is communications traffic from the week before Kandahar, encrypted channels between command and the intelligence unit that provided target information. Ishwam omchas se bachatin. Elena scanned the messages. Most were routine, coordinates, timing, logistics. But then she saw something that made her blood freeze. A message flagged as high priority, sent 12 hours before the mission. Asset reliability questionable. Recommend delay pending verification. The response came from Colonel Voss. Mission proceeds as planned. Window closing. Accept elevated risk. He knew. Elena whispered. He knew the intelligence was bad and sent us anyway. Gets better. Webb scrolled down. This is from 2 hours before insertion. Another warning. This one from CIA liaison. The message was blunt. Source credibility compromised. Target may be aware. Abort recommended. Voss's response, too late to abort. Teams are in position. We proceed. Elena felt sick. He sacrificed us. For what? A promotion? A headline? For success, or what he thought would be success. Webb closed the laptop. The target was supposed to be a major intelligence win. High-value terrorist, big arrest, career-making stuff. Voss gambled that the warnings were wrong. He lost. And now he's trying to make it my fault. Exactly. If he can paint you as the one who made bad decisions in the field, he comes out clean. The mission failed because of poor execution, not poor planning. He stays a hero. You become the cautionary tale. Elena paced, her mind working through the implications. This evidence, it's enough to clear me? Maybe, if you can get it in front of the right people. But Voss has friends, powerful friends. They'll fight to keep it buried. Then we make it public. Webb shook his head. That's career suicide, maybe actual suicide. These people don't play games. Neither do I. He studied her face, then smiled slightly. I can see why they made you special operations. You've got the look. What look? The one that says you'd rather die than run. She met his eyes. I ran once, took a discharge, came here, hid. I'm done running. Even if it costs you everything? I've already lost everything that mattered. What's left is just time. Webb nodded slowly. All right, here's what we do. I've got copies of this data secured in multiple locations. We leak it to a journalist I trust, someone who specializes in military corruption, but we need to time it right, after they make their move, before they can spin the narrative. How long do we have? Days, maybe less. Vance is moving fast. Elena checked her watch. Almost 1600. I need to get back. People will notice I'm gone. One more thing. Webb pulled out a burner phone, handed it to her. Use this for anything sensitive. Your regular phone is probably compromised. She took it, feeling the weight of what she was stepping into. Why are you doing this? Really? Because I was at Kandahar too. I saw good people die because of someone else's bad call. And I'm tired of watching bad people get away with it. He paused. And because you saved my life. When the compound went hot and we were extracting casualties, you stayed behind to cover the withdrawal. You took fire so we could get out. I never forgot that. Elena had fragments of memories from that night. Chaos, gunfire, screaming. She'd done what needed doing. That's all she remembered. I didn't know you were there. That's the thing about being special operations. We're all ghosts, but ghosts remember. She pocketed the burner phone and headed back to base. Her mind was clearer now, focused. She had a target. Voss. And she had ammunition. The question was how to use it without getting killed. That evening, Elena ran her training session like normal. 20 recruits showed up, eager and attentive. She worked them hard, breathing control, trigger discipline, stance correction. Rodriguez pulled her aside afterward. You seem different tonight. Different how? Sharper. Like you're ready for a fight. Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Maybe I am. Can I help? No, but I appreciate the offer. Rodriguez studied her for a moment, then nodded. Be careful, ma'am. Whatever you're into. Always am. She dismissed the recruits and headed back to her barracks. The sun was setting, painting the desert in shades of orange and red. Beautiful and deadly, like everything else out here. Inside, she found a note slipped under her door. Tomorrow, 0900, formal inquiry board. Attendance mandatory. Bring counsel. It was happening. Faster than she'd expected. She grabbed the burner phone and called Webb. They're moving tomorrow. Inquiry board at 0900. That's fast, too fast. She could hear him typing. They're trying to catch you off balance. No time to prepare, no time to get a lawyer. I don't have a lawyer. I know someone. Military defense attorney, good reputation, but she's 3 states away. No way she gets here by tomorrow. Elena sat on her bunk thinking. Then I go alone. That's suicide. Maybe, or maybe it's exactly what they're not expecting. Webb was quiet for a moment. You've got a plan. Sort of. How fast can you get that evidence to your journalist? 12 hours if I push. Oh, do it. I need it to break during the inquiry. Maximum impact. Elena, if you do this wrong, I won't. She hung up before he could argue. The rest of the night she spent preparing. Not evidence. She didn't have access to that. Not a defense. She couldn't talk about the classified mission anyway. Instead, she prepared herself. Mentally, emotionally, for what was coming. At 0400, she woke from a restless sleep. Got up, showered, dressed in her cleanest uniform, made coffee that she didn't drink. At 0700, Colonel Hayes found her outside the medical bay. I heard about the inquiry. News travels fast. I'm coming with you. As your commanding officer, I have a right to be present. I appreciate that, sir. Have you got a lawyer? No. Then get one. I can make calls. No time. The inquiry's in 2 hours. Hayes swore under his breath. This is wrong. They're railroading you. Maybe, or maybe they're giving me exactly what I need. He looked at her sharply. What does that mean? It means I'm done hiding. Whatever happens in there, it ends today. At 0855, Elena walked into the inquiry room. It was set up like a courtroom, a long table at the front where 3 officers sat, a single chair in the middle facing them, observers along the walls. Special Agent Vance sat to one side, looking satisfied. Elena took her seat. Colonel Hayes sat behind her, a silent presence. The center officer, a brigadier general she didn't recognize, opened a folder. This inquiry is convened to review the circumstances surrounding Staff Sergeant Elena Carter's service record and recent activities. Specifically, we're examining her role in Operation Silent Crown, conducted in Kandahar province 2 years ago. Elena kept her face neutral. Sergeant Carter, you're aware this is a classified proceeding? Yes, sir. And you understand that lying or withholding information is a federal offense? Yes, sir. Good. He glanced at Vance. Agent Vance has brought certain irregularities to our attention. We're here to establish facts. Vance stood. The official report from Operation Silent Crown states that the mission failed due to equipment malfunction and communication breakdown, but eyewitness testimony suggests otherwise. What testimony? Elena asked. Vance smiled. From your own team members, the ones who survived. She pulled out a document, started reading. Quote, Sergeant Carter made a call to breach the compound despite warnings that the intelligence was compromised. Her decision led directly to enemy contact and casualties. End quote. Elena's jaw clenched. Who said that? The testimony is sealed, but it's from a credible source. Then it's a lie. Is it? Or are you just trying to protect yourself? Before Elena could respond, the door burst open. Colonel Richard Voss walked in. Elena's blood ran cold. He looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, silver-haired, the kind of officer who wore authority like a tailored suit. He didn't look at her, just took a seat at the inquiry table. Apologies for the delay. I wanted to be present for this. The brigadier general nodded. Of course, Colonel. Your testimony will be valuable. Voss finally looked at Elena. His expression was neutral, but his eyes were ice. Sergeant Carter, it's been a while. Sir, I want to start by saying I take no pleasure in this. You were a good soldier, but good soldiers sometimes make bad decisions under pressure. Elena said nothing. Voss continued. The mission you led in Kandahar was compromised from the start. I take responsibility for that. But you had options in the field. You chose to proceed despite clear indicators that the situation was deteriorating. That decision cost lives. I followed your orders, sir. You followed the mission parameters, but you also had discretion to abort if conditions became untenable. You didn't use it because you told me the window was closing, that we had one shot. Did I? I don't recall giving you that specific instruction. Elena felt the trap closing. He was rewriting history, betting she couldn't prove otherwise. Then her burner phone buzzed in her pocket. Once. The signal from Webb. The story was breaking. She stood. May I speak freely, sir? The brigadier general frowned. Sergeant, you're not... I'm asking permission to make a statement. For the record. Voss leaned back, confident. By all means. Elena took a breath. The mission failed because the intelligence was compromised and command knew it. 12 hours before insertion, you received a warning that the source was unreliable. 2 hours before, CIA recommended abort. You ordered us to proceed anyway. Voss's expression didn't change. That's classified information. You can't discuss it here. It's also true, and it's about to become public. What are you talking about? Elena pulled out her phone, the regular one, opened her news app. The headline was already there, breaking 5 minutes ago. Military cover-up, classified documents, reveal fatal mission, ignored intelligence warnings. Voss's face went white. Vance stood. Where did you get this? I didn't. Someone else did. A journalist with sources and evidence. Elena set her phone on the table. Everything's in there. Communications traffic, warning messages, your orders to proceed despite known risks. The room erupted. The brigadier general grabbed his own phone. Voss was shouting something about security breaches. Vance was calling someone, her voice sharp. Colonel Hayes stood, moved to Elena's side. I think this inquiry is over. Sit down, Colonel, the brigadier general snapped. Then, into his phone, get me General Morrison, now. Elena stayed standing, her heart pounding. This was the moment. Either the evidence would hold, or she'd just destroyed herself for nothing. Voss turned to her, his composure cracking. You have no idea what you've just done. I know exactly what I've done. I've told the truth. The truth? He laughed bitterly. The truth is complicated, strategic. You just compromised national security to save your own skin. I compromised a cover-up. There's a difference. The Brigadier General's phone conversation was getting heated. Words like containment and media lockdown drifted across the room. Then the door opened again. A two-star general walked in, older, harder, with the kind of presence that made everyone straighten instinctively. At ease. His voice cut through the chaos. I'm General Morrison. Someone want to explain what the hell is happening? Everyone started talking at once. Morrison held up a hand. One at a time. Colonel Voss? Voss stood, composed again. Sir, this is a security breach orchestrated by Sergeant Carter. She's leaked classified material to damage my reputation and avoid accountability for her failures. Morrison looked at Elena. That true? No, sir. I didn't leak anything, but I'm not sorry it's out there. Why not? Because people died based on bad decisions made by someone who's trying to blame me for it. I won't be a scapegoat. Morrison studied her for a long moment. Then he looked at the Brigadier General. Show me the article. He read it on someone's tablet, his expression unreadable. The room waited in silence. Finally, he set down the tablet. Colonel Voss, you're relieved pending investigation. Agent Vance, you're off this case effective immediately, and this inquiry is terminated. Voss stood. Sir, you can't. I can and I am. Get out. Voss left, his face a mask of rage. Morrison turned to Elena. You and I need to talk, privately. Colonel Hayes stepped forward. Sir, I'm her commanding officer, and I'm ordering you to stay here. Carter, with me. Elena followed Morrison out of the room, down the hall, into an empty office. He closed the door, turned to face her. Do you know what you've just done? Started a war, sir. Damn right you have. Voss has friends, powerful friends. They're going to come after you hard. Let them. Morrison almost smiled. You've got spine, I'll give you that. He sat on the edge of a desk. Here's the situation. The story's out, can't undo that. The investigation into Kandahar is now public, which means it has to be legitimate. Real oversight, real accountability. Good. For you, maybe. For the military, it's a nightmare. But it's the right nightmare. He paused. What do you want out of this? The truth, that's all. Not reinstatement? Not compensation? No, sir, just the truth. He nodded slowly. All right, then here's what's going to happen. We're opening a formal investigation. Full transparency, you'll be called to testify. So will everyone else involved. It'll take months, maybe years. And at the end, either you're vindicated or you're not. I can live with that. Can you? Because this process will destroy your privacy. Every decision you made, every action you took, it'll all be examined under a microscope. Elena thought about it, really thought about it. For 2 years, she'd hidden from her past. Now she was about to drag it into the light. I can live with it, she said finally. Morrison stood, extended his hand. Then I'll make sure you get a fair shake. No more cover-ups, no more scapegoats. She shook his hand. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly. He left. Elena stood alone in the empty office, her hands shaking with adrenaline come down. She'd done it, burned the bridge. No going back now. Her burner phone buzzed. Webb. Did it work? Yeah, it worked. Good, because you need to see this. See what? Voss just held a press conference. He's claiming you're a disgruntled veteran with mental health issues, that you fabricated evidence to attack him. Elena's stomach dropped. He's already spinning it. Worse, he's got support. 3 senators just issued statements backing him. They're calling for your arrest. On what charges? Espionage, treason, take your pick. She sank into a chair. This was happening faster than she'd anticipated. Voss wasn't waiting for the investigation. He was going on the offensive. What do I do? You fight. You tell your story. You don't let them control the narrative. How? I've got my journalist working on a follow-up, but she needs an interview with you, on camera, your side of things. Elena closed her eyes. On camera. Public. No more hiding. When? Tonight if possible. The longer we wait, the more his version becomes the truth. Where? I'll send coordinates. Come alone. And Carter? Yeah? Once you do this, there's no walking it back. You'll be the center of a national scandal. Your life as you know it is over. She thought about Iron Vale, the medical bay, the recruits she'd been training, the quiet life she'd tried to build. All of it was already gone. The moment that phone call came in, her past had caught up. Send the coordinates. I'll be there. She hung up and sat in silence, processing. Her career was over. Her anonymity was destroyed, and she was about to become the most famous, or infamous, veteran in the country. But the truth would come out, and that mattered more than anything else. She stood, straightened her uniform, and walked back to the inquiry room. Hayes was waiting outside. What happened? I'm going public. Tonight. Tell my story before Voss buries me. Elena, that's the only move I have left. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Then I'm coming with you. You don't have to, Yes, I do. You're my soldier. That means something. She felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. Thank you, sir. They walked across base together toward an uncertain future and a fight that had just begun. Behind them, in the inquiry room, Vance made a phone call. She's going public. Tonight? Yes, I'm sure. No, we can't stop her. Then you'd better move fast. She hung up and stared at Elena's empty chair, her expression unreadable. Outside, the sun was setting again. Elena stopped at the perimeter fence, looking out at the desert. Second thoughts? Hayes asked. No, just saying goodbye. To what? The person I tried to be, the quiet life, the invisibility. Hayes stood beside her. And hello to what? Elena turned away from the desert, toward the base, toward whatever came next. The fight. Across the country, in a secure facility, Colonel Voss sat in a darkened room, watching news coverage of the breaking story. His phone rang. They're moving faster than expected, a voice said. No introduction necessary. I know. We need to contain this. Now. I'm working on it. Work faster, or this falls on both of us. The line went dead. Voss sat in the darkness, his mind racing. Carter had just declared war, and wars had casualties. He picked up another phone, dialed a number he'd hoped never to use. It's me. We have a problem. Elena Carter. Yes, that one. I need her silenced. I don't care how. Just make it permanent. He hung up and stared at his reflection in the dark window. Some wars were fought with bullets, some with words. This one would be both. The interview location was a hotel room 40 miles from base, anonymous, sterile, chosen for its lack of security cameras in the parking lot. Elena arrived at 1900 with Colonel Hayes, both of them in civilian clothes that felt wrong on their bodies. Webb was already there with the journalist, a woman in her 40s named Sarah Marks, sharp-eyed and skeptical, the kind who'd spent years digging through military bureaucracy and learning to spot lies. Sergeant Carter. Marks extended her hand. Thank you for doing this. I'm not doing it for you. I know. You're doing it because it's the only move you have left. Marks gestured to a chair set up in front of a camera. Let's not waste time. My editor wants this live in 2 hours. Elena sat. The camera's red light felt like a target on her forehead. Marks settled across from her with a notepad. I'm going to ask hard questions. You need to answer them honestly. No military deflection, no PR spin. The moment you sound rehearsed, you lose credibility. I don't have a script. Good. Then let's start. Marks glanced at her notes. Operation Silent Crown, Kandahar Province. What really happened? Elena took a breath. For 2 years, she'd kept this locked inside. Now she was about to hand it to the world. We were sent to extract a high-value target based on intelligence that Command knew was compromised. 12 hours before insertion, warnings came in that the source was unreliable. 2 hours before, CIA recommended abort. Colonel Voss ordered us to proceed anyway. Why? Because the mission was politically valuable. Big arrest, career making. He gambled that the warnings were wrong. And were they? No, the target was waiting for us. The compound was fortified. We walked into an ambush. Marks leaned forward. How many casualties? 3 dead, 7 wounded, including civilians who were being used as shields. And you were in command on the ground? Yes. So the official report blaming you, was any of it accurate? Elena's jaw tightened. I made calls in the field that got people out alive, but I also made calls that got people killed. That's combat. You don't get clean choices. But the report says you ignored warnings and proceeded recklessly. That's a lie. I followed the mission parameters I was given. When the situation deteriorated, I adapted. We extracted what we could and got out. Voss claims you had discretion to abort, that you chose not to. Voss is rewriting history. He ordered us in despite knowing the intelligence was bad. Now he's trying to make it my fault so his Senate run stays clean. Marks made notes, her expression neutral. You have proof of this? The communications traffic was leaked. It's all there. And you leaked it? No, but I'm not sorry someone did. Even though it's classified material? Even though people could argue you endangered national security? Elena met her eyes. The only thing I endangered was one man's political career, and he deserves it. The interview went on for 90 minutes. Marks pressed hard, asking about decisions in the field, about the civilians who died, about whether Elena had any regrets. I regret that people died, Elena said finally. I regret that I couldn't save everyone. But I don't regret doing my job or calling out corruption when I saw it. Some people will say you're just bitter, a disgruntled veteran with an axe to grind. Let them. The evidence speaks for itself. When they finished, Marks turned off the camera and sat back. That was good. Raw. People will believe you. I don't care if they believe me. I care about the truth. The truth is going to make you famous and probably ruin your life. Elena stood. My life was already ruined. This just makes it public. Outside, Hayes was waiting by the car. How'd it go? I don't know. Ask me in 12 hours when the internet decides whether I'm a hero or a traitor. They drove back to base in silence. Elena stared out the window at the dark desert, wondering what version of herself she'd see in the morning. The interview went live at 2100. By 2130, it had 10,000 views. By midnight, 500,000. By 0200, it was trending nationally. Elena didn't watch. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, listening to her phone buzz with notifications she didn't read. At 0430, someone knocked on her door. She opened it to find Rodriguez still in her workout clothes, phone in hand. Ma'am, you need to see this. Elena took the phone. Twitter was exploding. Hashtags, hot takes, arguments. But one post stood out, shared 50,000 times already. A photo of Elena from her special operations days in full gear, rifle slung, face streaked with dust. Someone had dug it up from a classified database. Underneath, this is the woman Voss is trying to destroy. She saved lives while he saved his career. Who posted this? Elena asked. Anonymous account. But it's everywhere now. People are calling you a hero. Elena handed back the phone. They don't know me. Maybe not, but they know Voss is lying. Rodriguez hesitated. Is it true? What you said in the interview? Every word. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Then I'm glad you said it. She paused at the door. Get some sleep, ma'am. Tomorrow's going to be worse. She was right. At 0600, Elena's phone rang. General Morrison. Have you seen the news? Some of it. Voss held another press conference an hour ago. He's claiming you stole classified documents and fed them to the press. He's got 3 senators backing him, all calling for your arrest. Elena sat up. On what grounds? Espionage, unauthorized disclosure. They're building a criminal case. But I didn't leak anything. Doesn't matter. You benefited from the leak. In their eyes, that's enough. Morrison paused. There's something else. Someone leaked your psychological evaluation from after Kandahar, the one that recommended you for discharge. Elena's blood went cold. That's private medical records.
I know, but it's out there. They're using it to paint you as unstable, PTSD, depression, the whole thing.
That's slander. That's politics, and they're good at it. Morrison's voice hardened. You need legal representation, real representation. I can make calls. Do it, whatever it takes. She hung up and immediately called Webb on the burner. They're coming after me harder. Medical records, criminal charges. I know, I saw. Webb sounded tired. This is worse than I thought. Voss has mobilized his entire network. Can we fight it? Maybe. But you need to understand, this isn't just about clearing your name anymore. This is about survival. They want you in prison or dead, whichever comes first. Then I guess I need to not give them that option. At 800, Elena reported to Colonel Hayes' office as ordered. He wasn't alone. 3 people sat around his desk, 2 in military uniforms, 1 in an expensive suit. This is Major Reeves and Captain Tolliver from JAG, Hayes said, gesturing to the uniforms. And this is Amanda Cross, civilian defense attorney specializing in military cases. Cross stood, extending her hand. She was maybe 50, with gray streaks in her dark hair and the kind of firm handshake that said she didn't lose often. Sergeant Carter, I've been reviewing your case for the last 4 hours. It's a mess. That's encouraging, but it's also winnable. Barely. Cross opened a folder, spread documents across the desk. Here's the situation. Voss and his allies are pushing for criminal charges, unauthorized disclosure of classified information, potentially espionage. The fact that you didn't directly leak the documents is irrelevant. They'll argue you facilitated it. How do we fight that? By proving Voss knew the intelligence was compromised and sent you in anyway. If we can establish that he deliberately endangered lives for political gain, the narrative shifts. You become the whistleblower, not the criminal. Elena nodded. What do you need from me? Everything. Every communication, every order, every conversation you remember from Kandahar. We're building a timeline that shows Voss's culpability. For the next 3 hours, Elena walked them through it. The mission brief, the warnings that came in, Voss's insistence on proceeding, the moment she realized the intelligence was wrong and they were trapped. He told me personally, Elena said, that the window was closing, that we had one shot, that failure wasn't an option. Was anyone else present for that conversation? Cross asked. No, it was just him and me, 30 minutes before insertion. Then it's your word against his. What about the communications traffic, the leaked documents? Those prove he received warnings. They don't prove he personally ordered you to ignore them. Cross tapped her pen on the desk. We need corroboration. Someone else who heard him give that order or something similar. Elena thought hard. That night was a blur. Adrenaline, fear, the weight of command. But there was someone else. Someone who'd been in the operations center when the final order came through. Lieutenant Marcus Webb. He was attached to the backup unit. He might have heard the communications. Cross made a note. We'll track him down. He's already involved. He's the one who helped get the documents to the journalist. Cross's pen stopped. He what? He approached me, said he was at Kandahar, that he saw what happened and wanted to help. And you trusted him? I didn't have a choice. Cross exchanged a look with the JAG officers. Sergeant, if Webb was involved in leaking classified material, he's potentially compromised as a witness. Voss's team will tear him apart on credibility. He's telling the truth. Maybe. But truth and legally admissible testimony are different things. Cross closed her folder. I'll see what I can do. In the meantime, you're going to be charged, probably within 48 hours. When that happens, you'll be arrested and arraigned. Arrested? It's standard procedure. You'll likely get bail, but expect restrictions. No contact with witnesses, no travel, possibly confinement to base. Elena felt the walls closing in. How long does this take? The trial? Months. Maybe a year. And that's if it goes to trial. They might offer a plea deal. I'm not pleading to something I didn't do. Then prepare for a fight. Cross stood. I'll be in touch. She left with the JAG officers. Hayes waited until the door closed. You holding up? Define holding up. He almost smiled. You're still standing. That counts. He poured 2 cups of coffee from a pot that looked like it had been sitting for hours. What you did? The interview? The truth-telling. That took guts. Or stupidity. Maybe both. He handed her a cup. But it mattered. People are paying attention now, asking questions. Voss can't control the narrative anymore. He's trying and failing. Social media has turned against him. The interview you did has 20 million views. People believe you, Elena. People believe what they want to believe. True. But right now, they want to believe that a corrupt officer is getting exposed. That's in your favor. Elena sipped the coffee. It was terrible. She drank it anyway. Her phone buzzed. Web on the burner. Turn on the news, Channel 7. She found a television in Hayes' office, switched it on. A breaking news banner ran across the bottom. Senator withdraws support for Colonel Voss amid new allegations. The anchor was mid-sentence. Documents obtained by this network show that Colonel Richard Voss received substantial campaign contributions from defense contractors who benefited from his decisions while in active command. Questions are now being raised about whether those financial ties influenced his military judgment, including the disastrous Kandahar operation 2 years ago. Hayes whistled low. Someone's turning up the heat. The anchor continued. Senator Patricia Holbrook, who yesterday called for Sergeant Elena Carter's arrest, issued a statement this morning distancing herself from Colonel Voss and calling for a full independent investigation into his conduct. That's one down, Elena said quietly. How many more does he have? At least a dozen in Congress alone. But if one's breaking ranks, others will follow. Politicians hate being on the wrong side of a scandal. Over the next 6 hours, the dominoes fell. 2 more senators withdrew support. A major news outlet published an expose on Voss's financial connections. An anonymous source, Elena suspected Webb, leaked audio of Voss at a campaign fundraiser making dismissive comments about battlefield second-guessing that sounded a lot like he was mocking accountability. By evening, Voss was in full damage control mode. He held a press conference, flanked by lawyers, reading from a prepared statement. These attacks on my character are politically motivated smears designed to deflect from Sergeant Carter's criminal conduct. I stand by my record and look forward to a full investigation that will vindicate my decisions and expose those who have weaponized classified information for personal gain. He didn't take questions, just walked off the podium while reporters shouted after him. Elena watched it in the medical bay, surrounded by recruits who'd insisted on being there with her. He's scared, Rodriguez said. Good, Porter added. He should be. Elena said nothing. She was watching Voss's body language, the stiffness in his shoulders, the way his eyes didn't quite meet the cameras. He was losing, and he knew it, but a cornered animal was most dangerous. That night, at 2100, someone tried to kill her. She was walking back to her barracks alone. Stupid in retrospect, but she'd needed air and space and quiet. The path was dimly lit, cutting between 2 storage buildings. The shot came from her left, suppressed, nearly silent. She heard the impact before she registered the sound, concrete exploding 6 inches from her head. Training took over. She dropped, rolled, came up behind a concrete barrier. Her hand went instinctively to her hip where a sidearm should have been. Nothing there. She was unarmed. Another shot. This one closer, sparks flying off the barrier. Someone was shooting to kill. Elena scanned the area. The shot had come from the roof of the western storage building. Single shooter, elevated position, suppressed rifle. Professional. She couldn't stay here. The barrier provided cover but no escape. Eventually, the shooter would reposition or she'd get unlucky. She looked around desperately. 20 yards to her right, the medical bay. To her left, open ground. Behind her, a fence. The bay. If she could make it to the bay, she could get inside, lock the door, call for help. 20 yards. Might as well be 20 miles. She took 3 deep breaths, then burst from cover. Ran. 2 shots followed her, both missing by inches. She zigged left, then right, making herself a harder target. 15 yards. 10. 5. She hit the bay door at full speed, yanked it open, threw herself inside, slammed it shut, and locked it. Her hands were shaking now. Adrenaline, fear, the old familiar terror that came with being hunted.
She grabbed her phone, dialed Hayes. Someone just tried to kill me. What? Sniper, suppressed rifle. I'm locked in the medical bay. I'm calling security. Don't move. She hung up and crouched below the window level, trying to control her breathing. Her medical training kicked in. Check for injuries. She patted herself down. No blood. No wounds. Lucky. Outside, she heard voices. Running footsteps. Security teams mobilizing. 5 minutes later, Hayes burst through the door with 4 armed MPs. You hit? No. Sure? She stood, turning so he could see. I'm fine. Scared, but fine. Hayes barked orders at the MPs. Secure the perimeter, find the shooter, lock down the base. They scattered. Who knew you'd be out here? Hayes asked. Nobody. I just needed air. Not random, then. Someone was watching you, waiting. Elena's mind raced. Voss, it has to be. He's desperate. We don't know that. Who else wants me dead? Hayes couldn't argue with that. The base went on lockdown. Security swept the buildings, found the shooter's position, rooftop of the Western Storage Building, complete with shell casings and sight lines. But no shooter. Whoever it was had vanished. Elena spent the night in protective custody, a locked room with an armed guard outside. She didn't sleep, just sat on the bunk, replaying the attack in her mind. Professional. Planned. This wasn't some random threat. Voss had escalated. The next morning brought more news. The investigation into Voss had widened. Federal prosecutors were now involved, looking into the campaign finance allegations alongside the military inquiry into Kandahar. And someone had leaked Voss's phone records from the night before the attack. One call stood out. Made at 1930, 45 minutes before Elena was shot at. The number belonged to a private military contractor known for providing security services that skirted legal boundaries. Webb called her at 700. Did you see the phone records? Yeah. That's it. That's the smoking gun. Voss ordered a hit. Maybe. Or maybe he just called a friend. At 1930, the night you get shot at? Come on! Elena wanted to believe it, but she'd learned to be careful about conclusions that seemed too convenient. We need more than a phone call. I'm working on it. The contractor has a history, 3 operatives with questionable backgrounds. I'm trying to ID which one was on that roof. Be careful. If Voss is willing to kill me, he's willing to kill you. I've been careful for 2 years. Too late to stop now. By afternoon, Cross had called an emergency meeting. The prosecutors want to talk, she said. They're considering charging Voss with conspiracy to commit murder based on the phone records and the attack. Will it stick? Maybe. If we can prove the contractor acted on his orders, right now it's circumstantial. What about my charges? The espionage case? Still pending, but the momentum's shifting. Public opinion is solidly in your favor now. Charging you while investigating Voss for attempted murder? That's a bad look politically. So I wait? You wait. And you stay alive. Elena spent the next 3 days in protective custody while the investigation churned forward. Each day brought new revelations. Voss's financial ties ran deeper than anyone thought. Payments from contractors, lobbying firms, PACs with shadowy funding. His Senate campaign imploded. 2 major donors pulled out. His primary opponent called for him to withdraw from the race. The military investigation into Kandahar uncovered more evidence. Testimony from team members who'd been silenced, communications that had been buried, after-action reports that conflicted with the official narrative. And then, on the 4th day, the contractor broke. His name was Derek Paulson, former Special Forces, discharged for misconduct. He'd been arrested trying to leave the country. In exchange for immunity, he gave prosecutors everything. Voss had hired him to discourage Elena from continuing her public campaign. Paulson had interpreted that as license to kill. He'd taken the shot, missed, panicked, and run. The recordings of his confession leaked within hours. Elena watched the news coverage from her protected room, Hayes beside her. It's over, Hayes said quietly. Voss is done. On screen, federal agents were leading Voss out of his home in handcuffs. Cameras everywhere. Reporters shouting questions. Voss looked straight ahead, his face carved from stone, but his eyes betrayed him. He knew exactly how far he'd fallen. Conspiracy to commit murder, the news anchor said, obstruction of justice, and potentially charges related to the Kandahar operation itself. Colonel Richard Voss, once considered a rising star in military and political circles, now faces decades in prison. Elena felt something loosen in her chest. Not quite relief, not quite satisfaction, just closure. What happens now? She asked. Now you get your life back, Hayes said, or what's left of it. The charges against Elena were dropped the next day. Formal apology from the Secretary of Defense, reinstatement offers, compensation packages. She turned them all down. I don't want the military's money, she told Cross. I just want to be left alone. You sure you could fight for back pay, damages, emotional distress? We're talking millions. I'm sure.
Cross studied her. What will you do? I don't know yet. But not this. Not anymore. 2 weeks later, Elena stood outside Iron Vale training base for the last time. Her separation papers were final. Her belongings fit in 2 duffel bags. Her future was a blank page. Colonel Hayes walked her to her car. The recruits wanted to throw you a party. I told them you'd hate it. You were right. They asked me to give you this instead. He handed her a letter. From all of them. Don't read it now. Wait until you're somewhere safe. She took it, feeling the weight of paper and signatures. Thank you for everything. You earned it, every bit. He paused. Where will you go? West, maybe the coast, somewhere quiet. You've done quiet. How'd that work out? She almost smiled. Terribly. Then maybe try something else. She got in her car, rolled down the window. If I figure out what that is, I'll let you know. Do that. And Carter? Yeah? You were never soft. Don't forget that. She drove away, watching Iron Vale disappear in her rearview mirror. The desert stretched endlessly, burning gold in the afternoon sun. 30 miles out, she pulled over and opened the letter. Inside were dozens of signatures and short notes. Thank you for teaching me to shoot straight. Porter. You saved my life. I won't forget. Jackson. You showed me what real strength looks like. Rodriguez. And at the bottom, in Colonel Hayes' handwriting, some people hide from who they are. You stopped hiding and became who you were meant to be. The world needs more of that. Elena folded the letter carefully and put it in her pocket. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. Webb, it's Elena. You okay? Yeah. I'm out, free, done. Good. You deserve it. I was thinking, you said you've been investigating this for 2 years, that there's more to Kandahar than what came out. There is. A lot more. You need help with that? Webb was quiet for a moment. You sure? You just got your life back. I got my freedom back. My life, She looked at the empty road ahead, the horizon stretching forever. My life is whatever I make it, and I'm tired of running from the truth. Then yeah, I could use the help. Where do I start? Come to Denver. I've got files, contacts, leads. We'll figure it out from there. I'll be there in 2 days. She hung up and started the car. The desert fell away behind her as she drove west, toward Denver, toward Webb, toward whatever came next. In Washington, in a federal holding facility, Richard Voss sat in a cell awaiting trial. His lawyers had abandoned him. His political allies had scattered. His Senate campaign was ashes. But he still had one card to play. A guard approached his cell. You have a visitor. Voss stood, expecting his remaining attorney. Instead, a woman in an expensive suit walked in. Someone he'd never seen before. Who are you? She smiled. Someone who can make your problems go away. If you're smart. I'm listening. You took orders, didn't you, for Kandahar? Someone above you made the call to proceed despite the warnings. Voss's blood went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, and so do we. She placed a folder on the table between them. Give us the name, testify.
and will ensure you serve minimum time, maybe even get you out early. And if I refuse, then you rot here for the rest of your life while the person actually responsible walks free." She pushed the folder toward him. "Your choice, Colonel." Voss opened the folder. Inside was a single photograph, a 4-star general, someone with real power, someone who'd ordered Kandahar despite knowing the intelligence was compromised, someone who'd thrown Voss under the bus to save their own career. His hand shook as he stared at the photograph. "How long do I have to decide?" 24 hours. After that, the offer expires." She left. Voss sat alone in his cell, staring at the photograph, realizing that the war Elena had started wasn't over. It was just beginning. And somewhere higher up the chain, someone very powerful was about to learn what it felt like when the truth came knocking. Elena reached Denver on a gray Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day where the sky pressed down heavy and the air smelled like rain that wouldn't fall. Webb's apartment was in a converted warehouse district, industrial bones wrapped in new money trying to look authentic. He buzzed her up to the 3rd floor. The space was exactly what she expected. Minimalist. Functional. Walls covered in maps, photographs, documents connected by red string like a detective movie. 3 computers running simultaneously. Coffee cups everywhere. "Welcome to the war room," Webb said, clearing papers off a chair. "It's not much, but it's secure." Elena set down her duffel bags and studied the walls. Faces she recognized. Voss, members of his team, politicians, and faces she didn't. Higher-ranking officers, defense contractors, people whose names carried weight. "How deep does this go?" "Deeper than I thought." Webb handed her coffee in a mug that said "World's Okayest Veteran." Kandahar wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern. Bad intelligence pushed through channels, missions approved despite warnings, casualties blamed on field commanders. For what? Money? Money, political favors, career advancement, take your pick. He pulled up a chair beside her. "The general in that photo I showed Voss? That's Lieutenant General Patricia Crane. She was the operational commander for the entire theater. Every mission went through her desk." Elena studied Crane's photograph. Late 50s, sharp eyes, the kind of face that projected competence and authority. 4 stars. A career built on results. She approved Kandahar? She pushed for it, despite CIA warnings, despite signals intelligence showing the target was compromised. She wanted the win. Why? Webb pulled up a document on one of his computers. Because 3 weeks after Kandahar, she was nominated for Joint Chiefs. The mission was supposed to be her crowning achievement, proof she could execute high-value operations in hostile territory. But it failed, so she buried it, classified everything, blamed you and your team, moved on. Elena felt cold anger settling in her chest. And Voss? Was her lackey. He carried out her orders, took the heat when things went wrong, and got rewarded with political connections for his loyalty. Until you blew it all open. So Crane's the real target. She's the head. Cut it off, the whole thing collapses. Webb turned to face her. But she's protected, powerful. Going after her means going after the entire command structure that enabled this. Then that's what we do. Webb smiled, but there was no humor in it. I was hoping you'd say that. They worked through the night, piecing together the timeline. Crane's involvement went back years. Missions approved despite warnings, intelligence manipulated to justify operations, field commanders sacrificed when things went wrong. Kandahar wasn't the first. It was just the most visible. By dawn, they had a case. Not perfect, not complete, but enough to start asking dangerous questions. Elena rubbed her eyes, exhausted. What's our next move? We need someone inside, someone with access to Crane's communications and decision-making process. Without that, it's all circumstantial. You have anyone in mind? Webb hesitated. Maybe. There's a captain who worked directly under Crane, name's David Reyes. He was reassigned right after Kandahar. Quiet transfer, no explanation. I tried to reach out to him 6 months ago. He wouldn't talk. Why not? Fear. Crane has a reputation for destroying careers. People who cross her end up in dead-end posts or forced into retirement. Where's Reyes now? Fort Carson, teaching, keeping his head down. Elena stood. Decision made. Then we go talk to him. He won't see us. He will, because I'm going to give him something Crane can't. What's that? A way out from under her. Fort Carson was 3 hours south. Elena drove while Webb made calls, trying to get a location on Reyes. By the time they arrived, he'd narrowed it down to the officer training facility. They found Reyes in a classroom, finishing a lecture on tactical decision-making. He was younger than Elena expected, mid-30s, fit, with the kind of tension in his shoulders that came from carrying weight you couldn't put down. When the students filed out, Elena and Webb waited by the door. Reyes saw them and stopped. I don't know who you are, but I'm not interested. Captain Reyes, my name is Elena Carter. I think you know why I'm here. His face went pale. I have nothing to say to you. I'm not asking you to say anything. I'm asking you to listen. No, I can't. He started to leave. Kandahar wasn't your fault, Elena said quietly. Just like it wasn't mine. We both followed orders from someone who didn't care if we lived or died. The only difference is I'm done pretending that's acceptable. Reyes stopped, didn't turn around, but he stopped. 5 minutes, Elena said. That's all I'm asking. He stood there for a long moment, then gestured to his office. 5 minutes. Then you leave and never come back. Inside, Reyes closed the door and leaned against his desk. You have no idea what you're doing. Going after Crane will end her, Elena finished. I know, that's the point. She'll destroy you. She has connections, resources, decades of favors owed. She already tried to destroy me. I'm still here. Reyes laughed bitterly. You got lucky with Voss. He was expendable. Crane isn't. That's why I need your help. Elena pulled out a folder Webb had prepared. Documents, communications, evidence. We have most of the picture, but we need someone who was inside. Someone who saw how she operated. I can't. I have a family, a career. If I testify against her, if you don't, she keeps doing this. Next mission, next commander, next scapegoat. Elena leaned forward. How many more people die before someone stands up? That's not fair. No, it's not. But it's true. Reyes stared at the folder, his jaw working. What exactly are you asking me to do? Testify. Go on record about what you saw, the orders she gave, the warnings she ignored. That's career suicide. Maybe, or maybe it's the thing that lets you sleep at night. But Reyes was quiet for a long time. Then he opened the folder and started reading. An hour later, he looked up. If I do this, I need guarantees, protection for my family, immunity from prosecution. We can arrange that, Webb said. I have contacts at the Inspector General's office. They'll protect witnesses who cooperate. And if Crane retaliates, then we make sure the retaliation is public and prosecutable. Elena met his eyes. I won't lie to you, Captain. This is dangerous. But it's also right. And sometimes that has to be enough. Reyes closed the folder. I need 24 hours to talk to my wife, to think this through. That's fair. And if I say no, then we find another way, but it'll take longer, and more people might get hurt in the meantime. He nodded slowly. I'll call you tomorrow, same time. They left him there, staring at the closed folder like it contained a live grenade. Outside, Webb exhaled hard. Think he'll do it? I don't know, but I think he wants to. Wanting and doing are different things. I know. Elena looked back at the building. But sometimes all it takes is one person willing to be first. 24 hours later, Reyes called. I'm in, but I have conditions. They met at a secure location, a federal building where the Inspector General's office had set up a protected interview room. Reyes brought his wife, a tough-looking woman named Maria, who made it clear she wasn't thrilled about any of this. If my husband does this and Crane comes after us, what happens? She asked the IG investigator, a no-nonsense woman named Harriet Stone. We relocate you if necessary, change assignments, whatever it takes to keep you safe. Promises are cheap. Then how about this? Stone leaned forward. I've been investigating Crane for 18 months. Your husband isn't the first person to come forward. He's the fifth. And with his testimony, we finally have enough to move. Maria looked at Reyes. You're really doing this? I have to. I should have done it 2 years ago. She squeezed his hand. Then I'm with you. The testimony took 6 hours. Reyes walked them through everything. Crane's pressure to approve Kandahar despite warnings, her manipulation of intelligence reports, her threats against anyone who questioned her decisions. She told me personally, Reyes said, his voice steady, that failure wasn't an option, that careers were made or broken on missions like this. She made it clear that if I wanted to advance, I'd support her position. And you did? Stone asked. Yes, I recommended approval. I told myself the intelligence was solid enough, that the risk was acceptable. He looked at Elena. I was wrong, and people died because of it. That's not on you, Elena said quietly. Part of it is. I knew better. I just didn't have the courage to say no. When they finished, Stone gathered her notes. This is good, strong. With this and the other testimonies, we can bring charges. How long? Webb asked. Weeks, maybe a month. We need to build the case carefully. Crane has allies who will fight this every step. Will it stick? If we do it right, yes, she'll face court-martial for negligence, dereliction of duty, possibly conspiracy. Stone looked at Elena. And you'll be fully exonerated. Officially, publicly. Elena nodded. I don't care about exoneration. I care about making sure this doesn't happen again. It won't. Not on my watch. 3 weeks later, the charges dropped like a bomb. Lieutenant General Patricia Crane was arrested at her home in Virginia, charged with multiple counts of negligence, conspiracy, and conduct unbecoming. The media coverage was relentless. Video of her being led away in handcuffs, her face a mask of fury. Her lawyer immediately claimed innocence. General Crane is a decorated officer with 30 years of service. These charges are politically motivated and will be proven false. But the evidence was overwhelming. 5 witnesses. Hundreds of pages of documents, communication showing she'd knowingly approved high-risk missions despite warnings. The trial lasted 4 months. Elena testified on day 12, walking the court through Kandahar from her perspective. She didn't sugarcoat it, didn't make herself the hero, just told the truth, the good calls, the bad ones, the chaos of combat, and the weight of command. When the prosecution asked if she blamed Crane for the deaths, Elena paused. I blame a system that rewards results over safety, that punishes people for speaking up, that lets careers matter more than lives. She looked directly at Crane. She was part of that system. She benefited from it, and she should answer for it. Crane's defense tried to paint Elena as bitter, vengeful, unreliable. But the evidence spoke louder than their attacks. On day 47, the verdict came in. Guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Media frenzy. Crane sat stone-faced as the judge read the sentence. Dishonorable discharge, 15 years in a federal prison, forfeiture of all benefits and pension. Outside, reporters swarmed Elena. How do you feel about the verdict? Do you think justice was served? What's next for you? She gave them nothing, just walked through the crowd with Webb beside her, got in a car, and left. That night, in a quiet hotel room far from the circus, Elena sat alone with a glass of whiskey she didn't drink. Her phone rang. Colonel Hayes. I saw the verdict. How are you holding up? I don't know yet. Ask me tomorrow. Fair enough. He paused. There's something else. The Secretary of Defense wants to meet with you. Personally. Why? To apologize and to offer you a position. I'm not coming back to the military. I know. But hear him out anyway. It might surprise you. 2 days later, Elena sat in the Pentagon across from Secretary Thomas Brennan, a career diplomat with sharp eyes and the kind of calm that came from managing crises. Sergeant Carter, I want to start by apologizing on behalf of the Department of Defense for everything you endured. You were failed by the system, by your commanders, by people who should have protected you. Apologies don't bring back the dead. No, they don't. He folded his hands, which is why I'm here to offer you something more substantial. We're creating an independent oversight board for special operations, civilian-led, with authority to investigate decisions, challenge approvals, protect whistleblowers. I want you to lead it.
Elena blinked. Me? You've proven you're willing to stand up to corruption, that you prioritize truth over career. That's exactly what this position needs. I'm not a politician. Good. We have enough politicians. Brennan slid a folder across the desk. This is real authority, real teeth. You'd have the power to investigate any operation, any commander, to stop missions that shouldn't happen, to protect people like Captain Reyes from retaliation. Elena opened the folder. The scope was broader than she'd imagined. Real oversight, real accountability. Why me? Because you paid the price for speaking up. And you didn't break. That's rare. He leaned forward. You could spend the rest of your life being angry about what happened, or you could use that anger to build something that prevents it from happening again. She read through the details. The position was civilian, which meant she'd maintain independence. The board would report directly to Congress, bypassing military chain of command. Real power to effect change. I need to think about it. Take your time. The offer stands. Elena left the Pentagon and walked through Washington, her mind spinning. For 2 years, she'd run from who she was. Then she'd fought to expose the truth. Now someone was offering her a chance to make sure others didn't have to fight the same battle. She called Webb. They offered me a job. Oversight board for special operations. You taking it? I don't know. It means staying connected to the military, to everything I left behind. Oh, it also means making sure people like Crane can't destroy careers and lives. Webb paused. What does your gut say? Elena thought about the recruits at Iron Vale, about Reyes and his family, about all the people who'd been crushed by a system that protected power over people. My gut says someone needs to do it. Then maybe that someone is you. She accepted the position 3 days later. The announcement made headlines. Whistleblower who exposed military corruption named to lead oversight board. The response was mixed. Some praised it as accountability. Others called it a political stunt. Elena didn't care about the optics. She cared about the work. 6 months into the job, she'd already blocked 2 operations that relied on questionable intelligence. Opened investigations into 3 commanders who'd retaliated against subordinates. Protected 5 whistleblowers from career destruction. It wasn't perfect. The system pushed back constantly. But she was making a difference. One afternoon, she received a letter forwarded from her old address at Iron Vale. The handwriting was familiar. She opened it. Sergeant Carter, it's Rodriguez. I'm applying for officer training, and they asked me to list someone who influenced my military career. I put your name. Hope that's okay. You taught me that strength isn't about being the loudest or the toughest. It's about standing up when everyone else sits down. I'm trying to remember that. Thanks for everything. Monsieur Rodriguez. Elena read it twice, feeling something tight in her chest loosen. She'd spent so long thinking her service was about the missions, the medals, the accomplishments. But maybe it was really about the smaller things. The person she'd pulled from a firefight, the recruit she'd taught to shoot straight, the truth she'd refused to bury. Maybe legacy wasn't about what you achieved. It was about what you made possible for others. That evening, she met Webb for dinner at a hole-in-the-wall diner that served terrible coffee and excellent burgers. How's the new job? He asked. Frustrating, exhausting, necessary. So you're happy? She considered that. I don't know if happy is the right word, but I'm useful. And that counts for something. Counts for a lot. Webb raised his coffee cup. To being useful. She clinked her cup against his. To being useful. Later, walking back to her apartment through the D.C. streets, Elena thought about the journey that had brought her here. From Kandahar to Iron Vale to this moment. From running to hiding to fighting. She'd been dismissed as soft. Treated like she didn't matter. Pushed aside by people who thought power meant more than principle. And she'd proven every single one of them wrong. Not by being perfect. Not by being fearless, but by being stubborn enough to keep standing when standing was the hardest thing to do. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Voss had been sentenced in his conspiracy trial, 20 years, no parole. The article included a quote from the prosecutor. This sends a message that corruption and abuse of power will not be tolerated no matter how high you rise. Elena read it and felt nothing but tired satisfaction. Justice wasn't clean, it wasn't complete. But it was real.
She made it home, kicked off her shoes, and collapsed on her couch. The apartment was small but comfortable, a place she'd chosen, not one assigned to her by the military. On her wall hung the letter from her recruits at Ironvale, framed. Above it, her old dog tags from Special Operations. And beside them, a photograph of her team from before Kandahar, young, confident, unbroken. Some of those faces were gone now, others scattered, but they'd mattered. Their service had mattered, and she was making sure their sacrifice meant something. Her phone rang one more time. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Carter. Sergeant Carter, this is Lieutenant Marcus Porter. I don't know if you remember me. I remember. How are you, Porter? Good, really good. I just made team leader for my squad, and I wanted to thank you for everything you taught me about breathing, about staying calm, about not giving up. You did that yourself. Maybe, but you showed me how. He paused. I heard about the oversight board. What you're doing, it's important. I'm trying. You're doing more than trying. You're making it mean something. His voice cracked slightly. Thank you for not letting them bury it. After they hung up, Elena sat in the quiet of her apartment and let herself feel it, the weight, the pride, the exhaustion, the purpose. She'd been quiet for so long, invisible, dismissed, but silence had never been weakness. It had been choice, and when the moment came to speak, to fight, to stand, she'd done it. Not perfectly, not without cost, but completely. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered. The woman they'd called soft had become the one thing they feared most. Someone who refused to disappear, refused to break, refused to let corruption hide in shadows. She was the quiet weapon that had learned to make noise, and the world was different because of it. Elena looked at the photograph on her wall one more time. Those young faces, that old life, everything she'd carried and everything she'd lost. Then she turned off the light and went to bed, ready for whatever tomorrow brought. Because the fight wasn't over. It never really was. But this time, she wasn't running from it. She was ready, and that made all the difference.